Hey everyone, I sincerely appreciate your support. If you enjoy my audiobooks, I would be truly grateful if you could subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to support even further, you're welcome to become a Patreon member, where you can access audiobooks of novels as long as they are freely available on the internet. Your kindness and support mean so much. Thank you.
2 weeks had passed since the Forbidden Forest incident, and the buzz it had caused among the students had been thoroughly drowned by the looming shadow of final exams. Anxiety now gripped every corner of Hogwarts as young witches and wizards buried themselves in books, desperate to avoid failure. The library became a battleground of parchment and panic, filled to the brim with students seeking last-minute wisdom. Madame Pants, usually stern, was now downright terrifying with how she patrolled her domain, keeping order with sharp glances and even sharper reprimands. Only 2 days remained until Sunday's brief reprieve, but even that felt distant. 2 bloody days off, and McGonagall assigns enough homework to last the whole summer, Ron grumbled, furiously scribbling his notebook as he copied from Hermione's neatly written essay. He muttered under his breath, "And Hermione, that traitor. I told her to plant 2 deliberate mistakes so McGonagall wouldn't catch on that I copied hers. But no, she left it perfect, and I got busted." With a resigned sigh, Ron shut his own notebook, leaned over Hermione's assignment, and began correcting it himself, despite it being entirely correct. "This is for your own good," he muttered shamelessly, making clumsy edits. "Wouldn't want McGonagall to think you're too perfect, right?" Meanwhile, the Slytherin common room looked nothing like its usual self. Gone were the games, the chatter, and the relaxed atmosphere. Under Lester's iron rule, it had been transformed into a war camp. 7 long tables lined the lounge, each one assigned to a specific year. Even the once proud house banner had been swapped with a new one that boldly declared, 14 days of pain, then I become number 1, Lester. Since witnessing Dumbledore's overwhelming strength, Lester had been struck with the harsh realization of his own limitations. Power and prestige. He needed more of both. So, he did what any power-hungry Slytherin would do. He weaponized academia. He issued a mandatory study regime for the entire house, commanding everyone to hit the books. And to ensure results, he hired the top 3 students from each year, at a generous 40 galleons apiece, to act as tutors on demand. The offer was too good to resist. After all, 40 galleons was more than a month's salary for a ministry worker. Soon, the brightest minds in Slytherin were roaming the lounge, assisting anyone with questions, under Lester's watchful gaze. Of course, not everyone appreciated the new system. "Marcus, are you stupid? You've been staring at the same page for 30 minutes. Lester snapped, striking Marcus Flint's desk with a pointer. The Quidditch captain looked helpless. "I haven't done real homework in months." Lester didn't wait for excuses. He gestured to one of the 5th-year class reps. "You, tutor him. If he doesn't cooperate, whip him. And if he resists, strip him and toss him into the girls' bathroom." Marcus paled. Before he could protest, a sharp snap landed on his shoulder. "Sorry, Marcus. Please start studying," barked the bespectacled student, pointer raised like a sword. I'm studying. Marcus yelped and bent over his textbook with the look of a man awaiting execution. Satisfied, Lester reclined on the only sofa in the lounge and waved Malfoy over. Draco, the top student in 1st year and acting tutor for the juniors, quickly handed off his duties and approached. "What are Harry and Ron up to?" Lester asked, sipping tea from a fine porcelain cup. "They're mostly haunting the library, but not for long. Mrs. Pants keeps kicking them out. They don't belong in a study hall, clearly. Any signs of them sneaking to the 4th floor lately?" Malfoy shook his head. "Nothing. Filch hasn't spotted them. I think they're too scared of flunking to risk any nighttime escapades." Lester nodded, relieved. It meant the timeline hadn't veered. Harry and Ron were still on track to investigate the 4th floor after exams. That's when Neville would need to act. If Neville joined them during their exploration, Dumbledore might accept him as a legitimate contender, an equal. Unlike Lester, Neville could play the fool and still win trust. That made him invaluable. "How's Neville doing in Gryffindor?" Lester asked casually. Malfoy grinned. "Brilliantly. As per your orders, we've been working hard." He explained the campaign in detail. The strategy was simple: heroic coincidence. Neville would appear whenever Gryffindor students were being bullied, always nearby, always accidentally witnessing injustice. And Neville never backed down. His dramatic confrontations and wild, impassioned rants left the Slytherins fumbling for words. Even more impressive, Neville had raw talent in dueling. His crowning moment? Taking on 23rd year Slytherins alone in a classroom. One by one, they walked in. One by one, they were disarmed and locked inside. Their screams echoed through the halls, and Neville's legend was born. Soon after, Neville in time became a Gryffindor icon. He wasn't just brave, he was relatable. A once timid boy turned lion-hearted savior. Students now sought Neville's help before even considering a professor. Lester was impressed. "Well done," he said, pulling out a small gold pouch and handing it to Malfoy. "Your budget. Keep the Savior Project alive. Make sure Neville becomes a name known across." The live broadcast hadn't even started, yet the 4th floor of Hogwarts was packed to the brim. Even the Gryffindors, still sore from recent run-ins with Slytherin, had shown up en masse. After all, it wasn't every day that Neville Longbottom, yes, that Neville, challenged Lester Bader, the iron-fisted Slytherin warlord. The Weasley twins were bouncing with excitement. "Neville actually beat us to it," Fred said. "Guess we'll have to settle for front-row seats," George grinned. "Come on, let's grab the best spot." Even the usually aloof Ravenclaws abandoned their books and lounges, clustering together with cold stares aimed straight at the Slytherin side. After all, everyone knew the Snakes had been using some questionable methods to prepare. This was their chance to watch Lester fail, live. The Hufflepuffs, true to their nature, brought snacks and blankets. For them, it was less a confrontation and more a pre-holiday show. They formed a tidy circle on the 4th floor, as if prepping for a picnic, waiting for the broadcast to begin. Then, suddenly, the crowd quieted. A dusty and used curtain shimmered, then lit up, displaying the magically projected image of Lester Bader himself. "Hello, everyone. I'm Lester Bader," he said with an easy smile to the camera. "I know many of you have wondered what's hidden behind the door on the 4th floor. Well, today, Malfoy, Neville, and I are going to find out." All eyes locked onto the screen. The room fell into a tense, anticipatory silence. "Alohomora!" Neville stepped forward and cast the unlocking spell, opening the ancient door with practiced ease. The trio stepped inside, one by one. "Hello!" Eerie hum greeted them. Then a slow, deep growl. "Lumos Maxima," Lester called, and the room lit up in pale white light. 3 enormous heads loomed from the darkness, each snoring loudly. A monstrous, 3-headed dog, its slobber forming a slick pool beneath it, lay sprawled across the stone floor. "Sweet Merlin," Malfoy whispered, instinctively drawing his wand. "It's a Cerberus." Outside, students gasped. "A dog? That big? Lester might actually die in there." "Good. Maybe he'll think twice before bullying Ravenclaw students again." "Wait, there's a tunnel next to it, and the door's open." Back in the room, Lester motioned for silence. "It's asleep. Let's move quickly." He floated himself silently to the tunnel's edge and slipped down. Malfoy and Neville followed, copying the levitation spell with varying grace. Below it was pitch black. "Lumos!" Lester cast again, revealing a mass of slithering, pulsing vines. Malfoy yelped. What is that?" "Devil's Snare," Neville answered coolly. "It hates light. Fireworks too." "Incendio." The spell burst forth from Neville's wand, sending the Devil's Snare shrieking and recoiling. A safe path opened, and the trio advanced. They emerged into another chamber, keys. Hundreds of them buzzed around the room like furious wasps. 2 dusty broomsticks lay discarded on the floor. "Someone's already been here," Lester muttered for the camera. Outside, murmurs rippled across the audience. Excitement grew. They reached the far door. A key still jutted from the lock. It had already been solved. The next room was dark. As Lester stepped in, light spilled across a massive chessboard. Wizard's chess. But the game was already over. Pieces were shattered. The Red King had been completely obliterated. And near the broken piece, curled up, was a familiar figure. Ron, Neville gasped, rushing over with convincing concern. You idiot. I told you a secret chamber wouldn't make you smarter. Outside, the audience was less sympathetic. Ron Weasley? Ugh, again. He probably walked in thinking it was a buffet. Serves him right. I heard him muttering curses at people last night. Ron's reputation, already shaky, took another blow. Lester, unfazed, stepped past him toward the next room. Ugh, what's that smell? Malfoy gagged. You'll see. The room stank of filth. A massive troll lay unconscious in the center, its stench practically melting the air. Ron's here. That means Potter must be deeper inside, Malfoy muttered. But there's no way Harry could have knocked out a full-grown mountain troll. Neville and Malfoy exchanged worried glances. This wasn't in the script. Lester, could it be that blood-sucking creature from the forest? Malfoy whispered. I don't know, Lester replied, but we'll find out. Stepping carefully around the troll, the trio moved into the next chamber. It was nearly empty, except for a small table with 7 potion bottles arranged neatly on it. In front of the next door, magical flames blocked the way. A parchment sat beside the bottles. Malfoy snatched it up and read aloud. What kind of riddle is this? Neville murmured. Even Lester, top of his class, couldn't make sense of the logic puzzle immediately. But he had his own solution. Finite incantatem, he shouted, jabbing his wand into the ground. A shimmer rippled through the room. The wall of fire extinguished instantly, snuffed out like a candle flame. Lester smirked. Problem solved. Let's go. Lester took the lead into the next room, followed closely by Malfoy and Neville. The first few levels are children's toys set by Hogwarts professors for Harry, but the last level is the most critical, because Harry is about to face the greatest enemy in his life, that is Voldemort. Neville, after you go in later, you may see a strange man with black mist all over his body. Don't hesitate at that time. Just make up some awesome spells, and you'll be done with him. Neville nodded seriously. Lester is his big brother now. He will do whatever Lester asks him to do. In the last large room, Professor Quirrell also revealed his true colors. Quirrell, how could it be you, Snape? Harry couldn't believe his eyes. The one who wanted to throw the Sorcerer's Stone was actually the evil nemesis of the wizarding world, Ron's good teacher, Professor Quirrell. Why is it me? Quirrell said with a sinister smile. Harry Potter, why can't it be me? If it wasn't for your idiot classmates who found Aurors, I'm afraid I would have succeeded long ago. Thinking of the experience in the Forbidden Forest that night, Quirrell felt very pained. He was chased and beaten by a group of lunatics, and his little magic power was completely consumed. Harry's eyes widened, and he took a few steps back again and again. You are that blood-sucking monster who bewitched the centaur. The blood-sucking monster that bewitched the centaur? Quirrell's expression froze, a little confused. When would he bewitch the centaur? But now is not the time to ask questions. The task assigned by the master is the most critical. Don't talk so much nonsense, Quirrell said viciously, and waved his wand at Harry, and a silent, disarming spell hit Harry. Harry's thin body was immediately sent flying, and hit the wall fiercely. Before the pain was too late, Harry turned around and ran away. The Philosopher's Stone was in his pocket, and he had to take it out. Looking at Harry, who was running away, Quirrell dismissed it and waved his wand. The flames are blazing. Suddenly, a burst of flames shot out from Quirrell's wand, which quickly became a flame circle, enclosing himself and Harry in it. The raging flames scorched the air, making crackling noises, and Harry's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. Potter, hand over the Philosopher's Stone. Quirrell walked quickly towards Harry, pressing his wand firmly against Harry's temple. Harry gritted his teeth and roared, I don't know what you're talking about. At this moment, Harry suddenly felt as if his head had exploded, and a cold voice came from the back of Quirrell's head. Quirrell, he's lying. The Philosopher's Stone is in his pocket. The voice was like the moan of a devil, and the words in his mouth made Harry's face turn pale, and he clutched his pocket tightly. Good master. Quirrell had a smug smile on his face, but his eyes were extremely cold. Potter, then goodbye. A green light emerged from Quirrell's wand, and Harry was a little out of breath from the breath of death. Avada, create the world. Boom! A huge roar resounded through the entire fourth floor, and even the little wizards who were watching the theater in the hall were all terrified. I saw a huge fiery axe shot out from Neville's wand, and then rush towards Quirrell violently. Worry! Quirrell was shocked, and he had no time to react, and was directly sent flying. The magic wand and clothes in his hand were burned into air the moment they came into contact with the giant axe of fierce fire. This is not over yet. After Chi Luo was knocked into the air, fierce fire ignited behind him, constantly eroding his body. Two screams came out from Quirrell's body together, making people unable to bear goosebumps. Neville, why is it you? Harry looked back, just in time to see Neville walking towards Quirrell with a straight face. Professor Quirrell, you are so disappointing, Neville said calmly with a strong and invincible expression. Quirrell raised his head in pain and looked at Neville in disbelief. Are you Neville Longbottom? Impossible, impossible. Quirrell's voice gradually became cold, and the air nearby became extremely cold. Neville Longbottom, the child of the prophecy, Quirrell, or Voldemort, had an extremely hoarse voice, and he was unwilling to fate. Savior, it's you, Longbottom. You're hiding so deep. Neville was stunned. He didn't know what Quirrell was going to say. What kind of savior? Isn't that Harry Potter? What's the matter with Neville? Wait for me, Longbottom. Potter, I will definitely be back. There was endless killing intent in Voldemort's eyes, and he stared at Neville fiercely, as if he wanted to keep his appearance firmly in his heart. When Neville was watched, he just felt his heart shudder. It was too scary, even scarier than Professor Snape. Then, with a wave of Voldemort's hand, he turned into a cloud of black mist and fled the scene. Longbottom, Potter, and that damn mudblood. By the way, there's Malfoy too. You all wait for me. I will definitely take revenge on you. The incomparable resentment in Voldemort's heart was only a little bit short, and he could come back again and rule the wizarding world. It's all the damn brat's fault. Thinking of this, Voldemort quickly took out the tunnel, wanting to leave Hogwarts, but he never expected that just after he ran out of the trapdoor, he saw almost thousands of little wizards waiting outside. Voldemort, through the live broadcast just now, everything that happened below was relayed truthfully. When the little wizards on the fourth floor saw Quirrell being beaten away by Neville, they spontaneously blocked the door to stop the monster. Children, get out of the way, it's me we are, Voldemort said to the Slytherin students with an anxious expression on his face. For some reason, most of the students standing in front were Slytherins. Voldemort thought he had some face in Slytherins, so he planned to announce his name. Unexpectedly, before Voldemort finished speaking, several disarming curses came towards him. If Voldemort hadn't been able to hide quickly, he would have been blown away long ago. Fuck him to death. How dare you provoke Brotherly? Fuck him to death. Awada disarm you. Voldemort, when did the people in Slytherin become so crazy? Wasn't this college full of old silver coins? Why do you have to hit yourself with a spell now? Seeing the curse coming towards him, Voldemort panicked and fled like a rat crossing the street. And the little wizards behind were also in Quirrell. Let go of your brain. Hurry up. Voldemort screamed sharply, his tone extremely anxious. Almost all the young wizards in Hogwarts are here. There are more than 1,000 wizards. No matter how much he can fight, he can't beat them. If he is in his prime now, he will turn around and kill indiscriminately, making this group of little wizards cry for their fathers and mothers. But his current state is very bad, and the magic power in his body is even less, so he is not the opponent of this group of young wizards at all. Quirrell was also anxious and hurriedly emptied his brain according to what Voldemort said. A few seconds later, Voldemort's speed increased sharply, like an out-of-control train, smashing the glass window at the corner of the fourth floor and flying out. The little wizards who were still angry just stood by the window, chasing and beating Voldemort until Voldemort completely disappeared from their sight, and then they slowly returned to the hall on the fourth floor to welcome their heroes. In the lobby on the fourth floor, Lester, Malfoy, and Neville were surrounded by stars. "Lego is amazing, Lego. You are the best." "Malfoy, so handsome." There were also Gryffindor students excitedly yelling around Neville. "Neville, you are our pride." Ravenclaw's little beauty, Qiu Zhang's face was even redder, and she glanced at Neville from time to time, and the corners of her eyes were even crescents. Some licking dogs pretended to be smart and came at Qiu Zhang. "Qiu Zhang, don't be sad. Neville is so over the top. I will teach him a lesson for you." Neville took the lead in bullying Qiu Zhang before, making Qiu Zhang unable to participate in the competition, which made many Ravenclaw students gnash their teeth. Neville has become Ravenclaw's #1 enemy, and his hatred is comparable to Slytherin's perverted madman Marcus. Qiu Zhang curled his lips. Can you beat him? Even Quirrell is not his opponent. Licking the dog was very embarrassing, so he could only retreat silently, secretly sad. On the 8th floor, the principal's office. Dumbledore was lying on the chair calmly, and on the octagonal table, there was a steaming cup of coffee. Phoenix Fox, lying comfortably in the straw nest, was still snoring softly. On the wall, the previous headmasters of Hogwarts are doing their best to teach the Sorting Hat. Phineas, who was listed as the most unpopular dean in the history of Hogwarts, was tirelessly educating the Sorting Hat. "Sorting Hat, sweetie, learn it from me, Slytherin." The Sorting Hat was very sluggish and repeated mechanically in its mouth. "Lestlin, it's Slytherin, Slytherin." Phineas was furious. This idiot Sorting Hat has taught him hundreds of times, but he still called it wrong. "Lynchley, Trinlith, Slater." The Sorting Hat repeated dully, and each one read 3 different words. The other principals looked at Phineas with contempt. "Phineas, give up your cleverness. It is impossible for the Sorting Hat to sort everyone into Slytherin." Phineas was very embarrassed by Dalpo's inner thoughts. "I just want to teach him how to sort houses. Otherwise, he will still look like a fool when the freshman enters the school tomorrow. Then our Hogwarts will be ashamed." Hearing that, all the portraits of the principals are silent. Yes, the Sorting Hat has become mentally retarded. What should we do for tomorrow's sorting ceremony? The former headmaster, Armando Dipet, said, "Albus, think of a way." Listening to the old headmaster's question, Dumbledore stood up unhurriedly, picked up the coffee, and took a sip. "It's bitter. I should add more rock sugar." He took out his wand, tapped it lightly on the teacup, and a few pieces of rock candy danced and jumped into Dumbledore's teacup one after another. After taking a sip, Dumbledore was extremely relaxed and said lightly, "Don't worry, I will find a memory master to restore the memory of the Sorting Hat during my vacation. Believe me, based on what I know about him, that person will definitely be able to restore the memory of the Sorting Hat." Dumbledore blinked playfully and sat down again. It's just that not long after sitting down, a small silver-white stone on the octagonal table began to shake violently. A gleam of joy flashed in Dumbledore's eyes. He knew what it meant. Sure enough, the student Voldemort still did not escape his fate and was defeated by the Savior again. Bang, bang, bang. Soon, there was a hasty knock on the door. Dumbledore had expected it and said softly, "Come in." After the door was opened, Professor McGonagall strode in. Looking at the old god and Dumbledore lying on the chair, he felt a little dissatisfied, and there was a hint of resentment in his tone. This old bee eats and sleeps every day, and everything in Hogwarts is managed by her, the deputy head. Now that there is such a big event in the college, Dumbledore is still drinking coffee slowly in the chair. "Principal Dumbledore, it's bad. Quirrell is actually a dark wizard, and his purpose of sneaking into Hogwarts is to steal the Philosopher's Stone." "Relax, Minerva. Sit down and speak slowly." Dumbledore smiled, raised his right hand slightly, and a chair flew under McGonagall's ass. McGonagall was a little helpless, but he obeyed Dumbledore's instructions, sat down, and said anxiously, Harry and Ron. In this way, Neville used a family magic to defeat Quirrell and successfully obtain the Philosopher's Stone. Dumbledore, the original expression of being in control, slowly disappeared from Dumbledore's face. With McGonagall's narration, Dumbledore's expression gradually became richer. Neville defeated Quirrell and successfully got back the Philosopher's Stone, and the whole process was seen by all the little wizards in the school. No, according to his design, Quirrell should have been Harry's novice gift package. Why did he make a wedding dress for Neville? Dumbledore subconsciously rubbed his right hand twice and asked, "So, this matter has nothing to do with Harry Potter at all?" "Of course," Professor McGonagall said without hesitation. "But some people say that Harry actually went in, but he was almost killed by Quirrell, and it was Neville who saved him." Dumbledore, Harry was saved by Neville. What a fool. Isn't this the wrong big and small king? In Dumbledore's eyes, no matter how good Neville is now, it can only help Harry in the future, not replace him. Just like Hermione, even if she is excellent, in Dumbledore's training game, she is still Harry's assistant, used to assist Harry. But now, a Neville who didn't even have the qualifications to be Harry's assistant actually robbed Harry of the opportunity that should have belonged to him, which made Dumbledore very headache. After thinking for a moment, Dumbledore shook his head and sighed. "I see. Minerva, I will deal with this matter." Seeing what Dumbledore said, Professor McGonagall opened his mouth, but finally took back what he had said. He just put the Philosopher's Stone on the table, and then quietly left the principal's office. After Professor McGonagall left, Dumbledore showed a trace of pain on his face. "I'm sorry for the children of the Longbottom family. In order to defeat the Dark Lord, I can only sacrifice your interests. I believe that if your parents know about it, they will also be proud of your actions. Harry Potter is the chosen savior." In order to build momentum for Harry and cultivate Harry Potter, Dumbledore even dared to put Voldemort, an old silver coin, into Hogwarts. "Now I have worked so hard to prepare for so long, but the fruit of victory is picked by Neville, which is what Dumbledore does not want to see." Slytherin's Lounge. The lounge that was originally transformed into a study room by Lester has once again restored its former grandeur. Four leather sofas made of magical animal skins formed a circle, and a four-legged table was placed in the middle, with Gwent cards stacked on it. Not far from the sofa, there were several hammocks hung on the beams, on which several little Slytherin wizards lay half dead, enjoying their leisurely time. On the easternmost side of the lounge, there is a bookshelf covering the entire wall, filled with books and notes, and a group of good Slytherin students are gathering below to discuss issues. There is also the most central area of Slytherin. A black leather sofa domineeringly visits the front, and on the opposite side of the sofa are dozens of small chairs, and there are food and drinks in front of the chairs for the sitting people to enjoy. Under normal circumstances, few people would sit on those small chairs. As for the domineering black leather sofa, it was like a taboo in the Slytherin lounge. This sofa was not brought in the lounge. Like those small stools, these things were all carried by Slytherin, and Lester brought them here himself. The use is very simple. During a meeting, everyone should not be allowed to stand, so Lester took out some things that the system had drawn by lottery. Not to mention, these leather sofas and stools are really comfortable to sit on. If it wasn't intended to be used as a meeting place, and it would be troublesome to move around, Lester would have planned to carry them to class. On the chair, several little snakes who grew up with Lester were happily discussing. Our hourglass has a full 2,000 points, which is a full 200 points higher than the second-placed Ravenclaw. As for the last-placed Gryffindor, it is 400 points higher. Malfoy held the notebook, pointed to his own number on it, and said happily, "This time the house cup will definitely belong to our Slytherin house." Malfoy's words attracted the attention of many people, and almost everyone was smiling, listening to Malfoy's analysis happily. Although Slytherin's championship was already a certainty, they were willing to listen. After all, winning the Academy Cup is not an easy task. In addition, under the leadership of Lester this year, they have really worked hard. This Academy Cup, their Slytherin house, deserves its name. Even Marcus, when he knew Slytherin's house points, would proudly raise his head expressing that he had also contributed to it. For example, Roger, the captain of Ravenclaw, was the one who led the team to use dirty tricks to make him unable to play, so he also had credit. Jedi also smiled and said, "I can't wait to see the expressions of those Gryffindor idiots." Thinking of our Slytherin banners all over the hall, these fools must not be able to sleep. This remark immediately resonated with many people. Hating Gryffindor is an old tradition in Slytherin. Given the opportunity to mock Gryffindor, they naturally had to seize it. "Yo, what are you talking about? Why are you so happy?" In the distance, as soon as Lester entered the lounge, he saw a group of people, so he asked curiously. Malfoy saw that it was Lester and immediately repeated what he said just now. "Lego, our Slytherins can win the House Cup this time. Thanks to your leadership. You are a great contributor." Others also gave praise without hesitation. "Yeah, Lego, with you here, our position as Slytherin is getting stronger and stronger. That group of trash from Gryffindor, we lost a full 400 points. It's all thanks to you, Lego." Lester accepted all of these compliments with pleasure. People are not sages. They wear thousands of clothes, but they don't wear flattery. Lester is not a saint, so it's cool to be flattered. Of course, the most important thing is that there is nothing wrong with what they said. I am teaching magic and leading them to engage in activities. Although it is for the purpose of obtaining task points, in the end, it is not a bonus for Slytherin. Therefore, Lester thinks he deserves to be praised. "Okay." Lester waved his hand with a smile and said, "Slytherin won the House Cup, not because of me alone, but because of everyone's joint efforts, so we should thank ourselves first." "Just right. The Academy Cup will be announced tomorrow. Professor Snape just asked me to decorate the scene. If you have nothing to do, you can go and decorate with me." As soon as the voice fell, there were countless responses immediately. "Brother Lai, we are all free. We will do whatever you ask us to do." "That's right, Brother Lai. What you said is so serious. Even if it's something, yours is the big deal." Malfoy was also very happy and said loudly, "I can't wait to hang our flag on the dining room. When the time comes, those bastards in Gryffindor will definitely have wonderful expressions when they see it. Go set up the venue." In this way, dozens of people in a mess followed Lester happily to set up the venue. On the other side, inside Gryffindor's Rest, Ron was lying on the sofa with a loveless face, next to Harry, who also showed a salty fish expression. "Why?" Ron was very bitter, only feeling that his heart was broken. "Professor Quirrell, how could he be a bad guy? He obviously teaches me magic every week. He also helped me deal with Malfoy, and said he would be my dueling mentor. How could he be a bad guy?" Ron was very uncomfortable. It was hard for someone to pay attention to him. Unexpectedly, that person wanted to kill his good friend. Harry was also very uncomfortable, but he said in relief, "Ron, it's not your fault that you know people but don't understand them." "It's not my fault? Harry, it's not my fault. I'm the victim." Ron raised his voice and said loudly, "I feel sick at the thought of being alone with that dark wizard for so long. It's all Malfoy's fault. If he hadn't wanted to fight me, I wouldn't have been targeted by Quirrell at all. I want to make up for it." Ron's voice was very loud, and many people in the Gryffindor lounge looked at Ron. Being watched by so many people, Ron became more confident. "Yes, I need compensation. Malfoy has caused me to be alone with the dark wizard for so long, and he must compensate me." As soon as the words were finished, Neville pushed away the students in front and walked over. The students who had been pushed away were still very upset, but when they saw Neville, they showed obsequious smiles and moved out of the way. It could be said that Neville has been in the limelight recently. No one dares to call him Fatty now. On the contrary, everyone calls him Wei-Ge. "Ron, this is the common room. Be careful when you talk," Neville said with a grim expression. "Besides, you are the one who launched the sneak attack and tarnished the reputation of our Gryffindors. This is all your fault." "Wrong. Neville is right. Weasley, it's your stupidity. What has it got to do with the Slytherins?" "That's right. We still engaged in sneak attacks, which affected the reputation of our entire Gryffindor. Neville is doing well now, and many Gryffindors are ready to hang out with him, so they are naturally willing to beat the dog in the water." Ron's face was livid, panting heavily, and he glared at Neville viciously, while the others glared at Ron with contempt. Harry tried to smooth things over. Ron, don't say a few words. We are all classmates. Besides, what Ron said is not unreasonable, but he's just too radical. That's it. Let's break up. We have to settle the matter with Malfoy ourselves. As soon as the Savior spoke, everyone in Gryffindor dispersed, leaving only Ron and Harry staying where they were embarrassed. Hogwarts' winter morning is undoubtedly cold. The snow weighed on several branches, and under the gust of wind, they swayed like a silver phoenix. Snowflakes kept falling from the sky, falling on the little wizard's robe, forming spots of light. There was a heavy snowfall last night, and the whole of Hogwarts seemed to be painted with white paint, turning into a kingdom of ice and snow. Suddenly, in the peaceful campus, there was a burst of cheerful play and noise. On the snow in front of the restaurant, a group of little wizards in Slytherin robes and big padded jackets were cleaning the road tirelessly, exhaling. Malfoy touched his nose that was red from the cold, looked at the large open space that had just been cleared, and sighed sincerely. This snow removal is really hard work, because it has to snow on this day. Today is the day for awarding the Academy Cup. For today's Academy Cup award, Lester brought the Little Wizards of Slytherin to decorate the entire restaurant yesterday. This is the right of the winner. On this day, the winning college could dress up the school hall wantonly. Wiping the fine sweat from his forehead, Malfoy turned his head and looked at Lester and the others who were still working hard in the restaurant, feeling extremely satisfied. In order to dress up the dining room as best as possible, the Slytherin students deliberately got up early in the morning. Some of them were responsible for sweeping the snow, and some of them were responsible for decorating the auditorium. In fact, there was no such thing as snow sweeping, but Lester said that after stepping on the snow footprints, the sewage would pollute the field after melting, and immediately several Slytherins volunteered to sweep the snow. No one wants to have their day-long arrangement of venues destroyed by snow and sewage. In the restaurant, Lester sits in the center and directs other students to arrange the scene. Marcus, go. Put this Slytherin sign at the top of the hall. It must be the most conspicuous place. Jedi, don't throw the Gryffindor logo indiscriminately. Just put it at the foot of our flag. Pansy, go. And put these statues in every corner of the auditorium. The picture of the entire Slytherin united and thriving made Professor Snape, who had just arrived, feel very satisfied. Originally, he was just passing by the restaurant, and he happened to see so many Slytherins gathered together, so he came over curiously to have a look. Just happened to see the scene of everyone setting up the venue. As the head of Slytherin, Snape said that he was very satisfied with the layout of the scene. The entire restaurant was decorated in green, and Slytherin's flags were everywhere. Even the long tables where students ate were changed to green, with Slytherin's logo on them. Snape became more and more satisfied. Not bad. Not bad. Well done. This bottle with Slytherin characteristics is well placed, and it can show our demeanor. This Salazar's famous aphorism is also well written, not bad. The statues of these former deans are also well carved. The surrounding area of the restaurant was utilized. Lester took the senior Slytherin students and worked overtime overnight to make statues of Slytherin's past deans. Their biographies are also written below for everyone to look up to. Suddenly, Snape, who was still happy at first, turned dark, pointed at a statue that looked very similar to himself no matter which angle he looked at, and asked, "What's going on here?" The student who was carrying the statue was startled. His hands shook, and the statue floating in the air almost fell down. "Professor Snape, why are you here?" The Slytherin looked embarrassed and quickly put Snape's statue down with a levitating spell. "Why did I come?" Snape got angry when asked. "He is the head of Slytherin. Why can't he come?" "What are you doing?" Professor Snape asked after suppressing his anger. He couldn't be angry when he won the championship. After some mediation, Professor Snape asked, "This, Professor, you are of course your personal statue. How about it? Lego carved it for you." Snape, looking at the ashen-faced statue in front of him, a perennial and even obscene statue, Professor Snape fell silent. "You mean, what do I look like?" Snape felt a little worried. "That's right, Professor. What's the matter? Lygee's carving is fine. It's almost carved out of the same mold as yours. In his impression, although he is not a peerless, handsome man who looks better than Panin, he can be regarded as handsome and unrestrained. But now, Snape suppressed his sharp eyes and looked at his own statue. So I look like this. Professor Snape felt a little uncomfortable. Looking at a Slytherin with a normal expression, Snape began to recall. No wonder. I finally know why Lily left me. No, I have to go back and update my Lily diary. After thinking about it, Professor Snape turned gloomy, waved his big cloak, turned, and left the dining room. Only the Slytherin was left with a bewildered expression. Professor Snape is too happy. No wonder Lego said that Professor Snape is arrogant and arrogant. The way of expressing his happiness is really strange. At noon, the sun was high. Even though the other 3 colleges were reluctant, they were forced to come to the restaurant. As soon as they entered the restaurant, they were amazed by Slytherin's generosity. The whole restaurant turned into a sea of green, and even a statue of Salazar was placed in front of the restaurant. The students of Slytherin had been waiting at the table for a long time, looking forward to Dumbledore's arrival. On the teacher's seat at the front, Professor McGonagall looked at Professor Snape beside him, couldn't help but rub his eyes, and asked, "Severus, is that you?" Severus, the good-looking Snape, nodded arrogantly, and said indifferently, "Of course, Minerva. What do you want?" Professor McGonagall shook his head quickly, but his eyes were full of strangeness and surprise. God, why did Professor Snape start to pay attention to personal hygiene? What happened? Smooth black hair, neat dean's robes, and a faint fragrance on his body, all the time indicating that Professor Snape took a bath yesterday. Oh my God, Professor Snape finally took a bath before he was born. Professor McGonagall was so moved that tears filled her eyes. Who knew what kind of torture she had endured while sitting next to Snape for dinner all these years? The old bat who didn't take a bath, didn't wash his hair, and didn't change his clothes directly left Professor McGonagall speechless. Now, Professor Snape finally knows how to change clothes and take a shower. She feels very relieved. Just as Professor McGonagall was secretly relieved, Principal Dumbledore walked in through the side door in his blue robe. Standing on the professor's seat, Dumbledore looked at the enthusiastic students in the audience, his eyes full of nostalgia. Ahem! All of a sudden, the entire dining room fell silent, and all the students turned their attention to Dumbledore. This is Dumbledore's powerful reputation. Another year has passed, Dumbledore said happily. In this year, after talking a lot, Dumbledore finally taught everyone what they expected. Now, as far as I know, we must first have the House Cup Awards ceremony, and the specific scores for each house are as follows. 4th place, Gryffindor, 313 points. 3rd place, Hufflepuff, 345 points. Winkloff, 512, Slytherin, 712. The Slytherin table burst into thunderous cheers immediately, and everyone applauded loudly, celebrating the hard-won victory. However, there are still some things we must take into account before awarding the award, Dumbledore said with a smile. Inexplicably, Lester felt a little uneasy. Now that Slytherin is 400 points behind Gryffindor, Dumbledore, the headmaster, would not be so blatant even if he was biased. First, Mr. Ron Weasley. Dumbledore winked at Ron. Not only did he win the best chess game of the whole school year, but he was willing to sacrifice himself for his friends. So, Gryffindor plus 100. The Gryffindor students first looked at each other in dismay, and then cheered loudly together, shouting excitedly, almost toppling the ceiling of the restaurant. What's more, he even praised Weasley. As expected, a child of the Weasley family, he is amazing. Ron's older brothers even shared the honor, puffing out their chests and nodding. Ron himself was stunned at first. Then excitement flooded his cheeks. He pulled Harry's arm and shouted, "Harry, did you hear me? I added 100 points to Gryffindor." There was deathly silence at the Hufflepuff dining table. Every little badger had an extremely ugly expression on his face. Even the good old Cedric had a gloomy expression. Gryffindor suddenly added 100 points. Isn't that because Hufflepuff is at the bottom? As for the feat that Dumbledore said about Ron, they didn't know at all. They only knew that Ron clearly passed out in the room on the 4th floor, and it was Malfoy who found him. After the restaurant finally calmed down, Dumbledore spoke again. Miss Hermione Granger, your way of solving problems is very ingenious, and your courage to bear everything for your friends is even more commendable. So 100 points from Gryffindor. As soon as the words fell, the lion cubs who had just calmed down started the carnival again. Each of them was ecstatic and even shouted, "We are the second place! We are the second place!" Bang! Professor Flitwick was so excited that he broke the knife in his hand, and he kept panting heavily through his nose. Ravenclaw's eaglets also looked in disbelief, staring at Dumbledore, who was smiling all over their faces, and listening to the triumphant laughter of the Gryffindors. They only felt that there was something wrong with their ears. Hermione Granger's clever way of solving the problem. So I added 100 points to Gryffindor. When Lester broke through the level, the whole process was broadcast live, and many kittens saw the riddle left by Professor Snape. Although it was a bit difficult, it was not difficult for these top students at all. In less than 5 minutes, a group of eaglets came up with the answer. For such a simple question, Professor Dumbledore actually gave Gryffindor 100 points. As if Dumbledore didn't see the distressed expressions of the little eagles and little badgers, he said to himself, "Finally, Harry Potter." He showed fearless courage and extraordinary courage, and successfully recaptured the Philosopher's Stone. For this, I would like to reward Gryffindor College with 200 points. Boom! The whole restaurant exploded, and the Gryffindor students jumped up and down excitedly. 200 points? Oh my god. With these 200 points added, Gryffindor's score is exactly 1 point higher than Slytherin's. So the Academy Cup belongs to Gryffindor? As if guessing what the little wizards were thinking, Dumbledore cleared his throat and said softly, "This means that we need to make some small changes to the decoration here." He clapped his hands, and immediately, those green dangling ribbons turned bright red, and the silver ones turned gold. The gigantic Slytherin snake disappeared, replaced by a majestic Gryffindor lion. The entire Slytherin house worked hard to arrange the venue for a day, and all of them made wedding dresses for others. Even the sculptures of Slytherin's past deans have been replaced by Gryffindor's past deans, and the flying green flag on the auditorium has become a conspicuous bright red. However, apart from the little wizards of Gryffindor and the students of the other 3 colleges, almost no one cheered. On the contrary, they were dead silent. Especially at the Slytherin dining table, there are many emotional little snakes who actually cried. However, this time, no one will despise their fragility, but will seriously comfort them. Ron was very proud at this time, and laughed at Neville beside him. "Neville, even Headmaster Dumbledore didn't give you extra points. Why do you say that you found the Philosopher's Stone?" "I'm telling you now, it's not you who retrieved the Philosopher's Stone. It was me, it was Harry, it was Hermione. Understand?" Neville's face was ugly. He didn't speak. His eyes lost their former expression. He just looked at Dumbledore on the stage, as if he had lost his soul. Why? Why? Obviously he defeated Quirrell. Obviously he saved Harry. And obviously he retrieved the Philosopher's Stone. Suddenly, he felt that Dumbledore, a kind old man, was a little strange. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he missed his grandma a little bit. Originally, he wanted to tell his grandma and his mad, Auror parents all about what he had done this month. He wanted them to know that he, Neville, had not disgraced the Longbottoms, and that he could bring glory to the Longbottoms. "Grandma, I don't understand." Neville covered his head in pain. On the teacher's seat, Dumbledore seemed not to notice the dissatisfaction of other colleges and said loudly, "Now, please enjoy your lunch to the fullest." For a while, many delicacies that were hard to see in a market appeared on the dining table. But except for Gryffindor, everyone lost interest in eating. Boom! Lester's face was ugly. He slapped the table hard, stood up and took a deep look at Dumbledore, then turned and left, leaving the scene angrily. "It doesn't matter if you don't eat this meal." Boom! Bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. As soon as Lester stood up, there were a few more slaps on the Slytherin table, followed by several Slytherins who stood up with ugly faces, turned and left. It was as if a big fire had been set in the forest, and the entire Slytherin dining table was slammed one after another, and one after another the Slytherins left angrily. Even Malfoy, who paid the most attention to table manners, patted the table angrily, stood up, turned around, and left. All of a sudden, in just a few minutes, the entire Slytherin table was empty, leaving only the table full of rich food, and the table was still exuding fragrant heat. Facing these delicacies, the little Slytherin snakes dismissed them and didn't even move. They all stood up, turned around, and left, expressing their dissatisfaction with Dumbledore. Looking at all the Slytherins who left the scene angrily, Dumbledore's face was expressionless, making it impossible to see joy or anger, but from his indigo eyes, it could be seen that Dumbledore was extremely serious now. "Albus, I'm not feeling well right now, so I'm leaving now." As soon as the Slytherin students left, Professor Snape also had a serious face. He put the knife and fork on the table and left silently, leaving only Professor McGonagall sitting there with an embarrassed expression on his face. Regarding Snape's departure, Dumbledore did not speak, but a look of dissatisfaction flashed across his eyes. He was not dissatisfied with Snape. In fact, he knew that Snape had not been very obedient to him. The reason why Snape, the master of potions, was willing to do things for him was only for Potter. What he was dissatisfied with were the students of Slytherin, the group of students who disobeyed discipline, the group of students who left Hogwarts' most important occasion angrily. The departure of Slytherin made him feel a little uneasy. Dumbledore likes the feeling that everything is under control, but now, with the occurrence of various events, he only feels that the development of the situation is getting more and more beyond his grasp up. In the Slytherin lounge, almost all the students gathered here. Unlike the elation before, everyone, including Lester, looked ugly and lifeless. Dumbledore's eating is too ugly. Lester was very dissatisfied. He knew that Dumbledore would favor Harry, but he didn't expect that such blatant favoritism could be regarded as arrogance. Dumbledore made up his mind, thinking that he was the strongest in the wizarding world, and what he said was the truth, so he dared to blatantly take away the credit for Neville, and then put all the honor in Harry's hands. However, Lester wasn't going to let Dumbledore's faults go unnoticed. He didn't come out to mess around, not because of other people's faces. Malfoy was very angry, and was writing a letter in his hand. "I must tell my father all this, and I will expose Dumbledore's injustice." The other Slytherins are also very dissatisfied. 100 points plus, and the reasons are very inexplicable. No one can be happy. Just when all the little snakes were sulking with hunger, the door to the Slytherin lounge was opened. Professor Severus, the good-looking Snape, dragging his big robe, walked in with a cold face. Professor Snape. Many little snakes didn't dare to look into Snape's eyes. They and others followed Lester and left the scene angrily. Professor Snape must be very angry. Professor Snape's face was very gloomy. He looked around first and found that the entire Slytherin people were in the lounge. "Aren't you hungry?" Snape's voice was extremely cold, and his expression was very serious. "Leave without even eating lunch." The little snakes blushed and wanted to refute a few words, but looking at Snape's frosty face, they were all silent. Of course they were hungry. After working all day, they didn't even have a bite of hot food. However, even if they are hungry again, they will not go to the restaurant and eat those delicious dishes, which is their last dignity. After a long time, when the scene was at 0 o'clock, Professor Snape said, "Since you don't want to eat in the dining room, let's eat in the lounge." Everyone was stunned. They couldn't believe their ears. They all opened their mouths wide and looked at Snape in disbelief. Snape was a little hairy after being stared at, frowned, and snorted coldly. "Are you deaf? I said we will eat in the Slytherin lounge. Hurry up and prepare. I am here today. With let's eat together." At this moment, if someone stood outside the Slytherin lounge, they would definitely think that there was an explosion in the Slytherin lounge, and the excited cheers were like waves, one higher than the other. Even the 3 colleges located in the dining room could hear Slytherin shouting excitedly. Lester also opened his eyes wide, looking at Professor Snape in disbelief. Unexpectedly, this old bat is actually so humane now. Regardless of Professor Snape's notoriety, the excited students rushed towards Professor Snape, shouting, "Long live the Dean!" Professor Snape looked at the excited students. He still had a dead face on the surface, and he looked calm, but in fact he was about to shed tears in his heart. Finally, Severus Snape, was finally loved by so many students. Just when Snape was holding back the tears of emotion, he only felt his body lighten, and when he looked closely, he was actually lifted up by the little snakes. "You, what do you want?" Snape panicked. "Long live the Dean." The little snakes ignored Snape, formed a big circle, and threw Professor Snape into the sky. "Put me down quickly." Professor Snape also wanted to save face. Even though he was very happy now, he still scolded. It's a pity that the current voices are one by one, and Snape's bland, slow tone can't attract attention at all, so Professor Snape can only fly around in the Slytherin lounge silently. Gradually, Professor Snape didn't bother to pretend anymore, and removed the occlumency in his mind, and for the first time, a happy smile appeared on his face. He hadn't really smiled since Lily died, but now he was really— "Oh my God, is this what Professor Snape looks like when he smiles? It's really infiltrating." "Yeah, can you make Professor Snape stop laughing? I'm a little scared." "Professor, can I take a photo of you? My neighbor is a vampire. I want to take a photo of you smiling to show them my strength." Snape, looking at the Slytherins who surrounded him like watching a monkey show and pointing at him, the emotion that was finally raised in Snape's heart disappeared in an instant. "What are you doing here?" Professor Snape reprimanded slowly with a black face. "I said, now eat, understand?" Seeing Professor Snape getting angry, the little snakes all scattered like frightened birds, muttering in their mouths. "Yes, that's the smell. I was so scared to death. I thought Professor Snape was out of his mind just now." Snape. Gradually, the house elf in the kitchen appeared in the Slytherin lounge with delicious food, and everyone was fascinated by the delicious enthusiasm. The little snakes were no longer as lifeless as before, and they arranged the scene with laughter, very happy. Even Lester temporarily let go of his dissatisfaction with Dumbledore and joined the carnival. This day is the saddest and happiest day for all Slytherins. Everyone had a great time in the Slytherin lounge. Even the dead-faced Professor Snape ended up stuffed with a few bottles of white wine, and then took Marcus's hand, and went up into a bear hug, and murmured, "Lily, I miss you so much. You don't know how painful I am now. Lily, I haven't seen you for so many years. Your palms are so rough. Wait, Lily, when did you grow a beard?" Marcus, damn, holding yourself in your arms, but talking about others. Is this a man? Marcus gave Snape a very contemptuous look. Lester was also very happy, drinking a few bottles of beer. Not drunk, his cheeks were flushed. He didn't go to play with Malfoy and the others, nor did he go to drink with Marcus and the others. He just sat on his leather sofa, smiling and looking at the happy little wizards in the lounge. He knew that the little wizards of Slytherin had returned to their hearts, and by the next semester, he could really expand outward. Time passed quickly, and in a blink of an eye, it was the day of parting. The little snakes of Slytherin were reluctantly saying goodbye in the lounge, while Malfoy was like a hard-working bee, constantly wandering among the little snakes, sending them invitations. "Lester, do you have time during the holidays? We have a banquet at Malfoy Manor, and I want to invite you." "There should be." Lester did not give an affirmative answer, because he doesn't intend to have fun during the holiday, but to make good use of it to expand his power. "I was in school before, and the Azkaban interest group lacked cutting-edge combat power. Now that I have returned, I can finally lead talents to do great things." "Okay." Malfoy was a little sad, but in a blink of an eye, he became happy again because there was a pretty girl standing outside the door, which turned out to be Hermione from Gryffindor. "Hermione, here you are. This is an invitation card. You must come over during the holidays." Malfoy forced the invitation card into Hermione's hand, and then ran away excitedly. This operation left Lester speechless. Malfoy is Malfoy, and in order to tease a girl, he really would not let go of any opportunity. Regardless of the excitement of Malfoy, Lester silently packed his luggage. In fact, it was nothing, just the wand and his own underwear. As for the mattress, these things should be placed in the dormitory, and no one will steal them. Quilt. After packing his luggage, Lester followed the Slytherin crowd and slowly walked towards the gate of Hogwarts. At this time, there were already quite a few young wizards, dragging their suitcases, gathered at the gate in groups of 3 or 4. Lester saw Harry, who was looking at his toes with a bitter face, already worrying about his winter vacation life in his mind. Beside him, Ron also had a smug face, and he was still loudly proclaiming that he scored 100 points for Gryffindor. But after he saw Lester and Malfoy, he immediately hid like a mouse seeing a cat. Before Malfoy challenged him to a wizard duel, knowing that he didn't go to fight it now, Ron thought that Malfoy must have forgotten, so, in order to prevent Malfoy from thinking about it, he always avoided Malfoy now. Looking at the terrified Ron, Malfoy sighed sincerely. Stupid. Lester also saw Neville. Unlike before, he was alone. Now Neville is a popular figure in Gryffindor. Even the senior Gryffindors are all in front of Neville, wanting to make friends with Neville. The other lower grades only look at whether they can add points to the college, but the upper grades are not fools. Neville can defeat Professor Quirrell in one move. It is obvious to all. Lester. Neville also saw Lester and waved his hand to him, and Lester also responded with a smile. The students of the 2 colleges did not express anything about this. One is the leader of Slytherin, and the other is the current strongest in Gryffindor. They naturally dare not object to making friends. Another half an hour passed, and the familiar whistle of Hogwarts Express sounded, and all the students were boiling. One after another boarded the Hogwarts Express, dragging their luggage, tirelessly looking for a box. Lester didn't need to look for it, because thanks to the praise of his classmates, he had a box of his own. Sitting on the chair in the box, watching the sights flying by outside the window, the jungle, the fields, the rice fields, and even the Muggle farmers who were plowing. The train passed one Muggle town after another, and the high-rise buildings in it caused the little wizards to exclaim. During the period, Malfoy also brought someone here, but after chatting with Lester for a few words, he left in a hurry. Lester knew that with Malfoy's virtue, he would either chat with Hermione or bully Gryffindor. I don't know how long it took, but the Mercedes-Benz Hogwarts Express slowly stopped. Finally, the train stopped at the 9 3/4 platform of King's Cross Station. Stepping out of the train, Lester saw Hafiz, Sangbiao, and others from a distance. They also welcomed the return of the boss with a smile. With a smile on his face, Lester dragged his suitcase and walked quickly outside. Magic World, Lester, Master Lot. As soon as he stepped out of the station, Lester was surrounded by a group of people. Ron, who also just walked out of the station, couldn't help but sneered when he saw this. Hee, it doesn't matter how good you are in school, but you're just a Muggle wizard, and now surrounded by so many people, he must have caused trouble. Unexpectedly, instead of beating Lester, those big men respectfully protected Lester. There are also a few men with fierce faces who are not simple at first glance. They put their hands in their arms and looked around fiercely. Whenever pedestrians approached Lester, they would not hesitate. Push it away politely. Ron, Mr. Weasley on the side also asked curiously, Ron, do you know that kid? His family is really domineering. Although they are rich and powerful, they can't do this. Ron was very jealous and slandered. Lester Bader, the bad breed of Slytherin, he has done all kinds of bad things in the academy. Mr. Weasley agreed very much. Indeed, it can be seen from his family that if his family is so domineering, this Lester must also be very domineering. Ron nodded in agreement and kept slandering Lester and told his father all about how Lester bullied him. Not long after, Mr. Weasley's face was ugly, and he said after a while, No, I have to have a good chat with his parents, how they educate their children. After all, Mr. Weasley strode towards Lester, wanting to report to his parents that Lester bullied Ron. As soon as he approached, Mr. Weasley saw his immediate boss, the director of the Misuse of Muggle Substances Division, a middle-aged man with yellow hair and a black gentleman's hat. This director is very difficult to speak, and the family is also very powerful in the Ministry of Magic, sometimes even dare not give face to Malfoy, the big benefactor. Could it be that Lester actually provoked the director? Mr. Weasley was a little excited. That's great. As a small employee of the Ministry of Magic, his words may not have much weight, but a director of the Ministry of Magic will definitely make Lester's family relented. Taking a few steps closer cautiously, Mr. Weasley pricked up his ears, wanting to hear how the director criticized Lester. I saw Mr. Chief walking towards Lester quickly, with a menacing and vigorous pace, with a big belly, full of aura of a superior. Mr. Hafiz, I beg you to hold your hand high. The dog really didn't intentionally sabotage your business. It was all a misunderstanding. The director was very humble, forcibly broke through the bodyguards, rushed in front of Hafez, bent his knees to kowtow to Hafez. Seeing the director's actions, Hafiz's soul was about to be frightened. This kid is crazy. Master lies next to him, and he wants to kneel down for him. This is to flatter and kill him. Don't kneel. Hafiz quickly helped the director up, looked at it carefully, and became even angrier. He had never seen this be before. Seeing Master lie looking at him, Hafiz suppressed his anger and said lightly, "Do I know you? Did you recognize the wrong person?" The director looked at Hafiz, then at Lester in school uniform, and understood. The students wearing school uniforms must be the children of the Hafiz family. His Excellency Hafiz certainly does not want to destroy his image in the hearts of the children. I don't know, Your Excellency Hafiz. I made a mistake. I'm leaving now. The director quickly admitted his mistake, turned around, and wanted to leave. His son's life is still in the hands of Hafiz. He dare not act rashly. Lester looked at the obese director, frowned, and said lightly, "Wait." The director shuddered and turned around, not caring about his identity at all, flatteringly said, "You must be Mr. Hafiz's child. You are so handsome. You must have performed well in Hogwarts. Uncle is your father's colleague, and he likes children the most. I heard that the Merlin Circor has recently asked for a badge. Uncle will definitely nominate you when the time comes." Good guy, as expected of the director, he doesn't even know what Lester does, so he's about to be nominated for the Merlin Order. Hafez's face turned green. Damn it, this fat man really wants him dead. He actually said that Grandpa Lai is his child, which is killing Hafez. All of a sudden, the other prisoners looked at Hafiz very unkindly, and the smile on Lester's face also slowly froze. "Master Lai, listen to my explanation." Hafiz didn't care to hide it, and hurriedly wanted to explain. Lester shook his head and said lightly, "Uncle, you misunderstood. Mr. Hafiz is just my friend." Hafiz nodded again and again. Yes, I and Grandpa Lester are just friends. The director was stunned. He didn't know why, but he felt that among the group of people, the child Lester had the highest status. Lester said lightly to the director, "Okay, we have something to do, and we need to go back first. As for your son, if he gets lost, he can look for Auror instead of us." After all, Lester lifted his legs and left, and the other prisoners followed suit. Before leaving, he gave the director a fierce look, which made him feel cold. Mr. Weasley couldn't believe his eyes. Damn it, Lester's behavior was not only arrogant, it was so arrogant that he even dared to kidnap the director's son. No, I'm going to tell Ron to be more honest in Hogwarts. Mr. Weasley was very anxious, so he gave Ron 2 big mouths when he went back, and then scolded Ron to be more honest, and told Ron to be more honest. The fight was inexplicable. After walking out of the station, Lester had the opportunity to ask, what happened to that fat man just now? As soon as he came up, he wanted to nominate himself for the Sir Merlin, and he looked like a big shot in the Ministry of Magic. Soon, some prisoners found out the information and told Lester. "Grandfather, that fat man is the director of the Department of Prohibition of Misuse of Muggle Substances, and his son didn't offend us, but just happened to witness our kidnapping of old Malfoy. For safety, we temporarily detained him. That fat man should have some power, and he was able to find Hafez's head. We dispatched together to pick you up today. That's why we ran into him." Lester was speechless. Kidnapping old Malfoy? What's going on with this group of people? Damn it, I don't know if Malfoy is messing with him, and he even kidnapped his father. When Draco came home, he looked at the empty villa and questioned his soul. Where did my father go? Lester felt extremely pained. Where is old Malfoy now? Lester was a little anxious. Little Malfoy was his own, but his own subordinates tied up his father, which was unreasonable. Hafiz was a little embarrassed. I'm sorry, Lage. That old Malfoy is too cunning, and he is very capable of escaping. We chased most of the UK, but failed to catch him. Now he has fled back to Malfoy's ancestral home. Lester breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Draco's father was not kidnapped. Otherwise, it would be too embarrassing. Okay, don't target the Malfoy family in the future. They are our allies. Lester said lightly. By the way, the son of the fat director's family. Let him go back, and then give them a few more cards. Tickets to the beautiful country. Don't let me see their family in the magic world. Director Fatson didn't have any hatred against him. He was just unlucky enough to witness the kidnapping, and he wasn't a big killer, so he would kill the whole family at every turn. It is a good deed to let their family go to the beautiful country. I'm really a great saint. Lester was smug in his heart. Azkaban, a place that terrified countless wizards, now, a huge city group quietly appeared on this island. Azkaban Vocational and Technical School, inside the principal's office. A very magnificent scroll, located on the wall at the end of the principal's office, depicts the scene of Lester's first speech in Azkaban prison. Below the picture scroll is a handsome young man, lazily lying on a rocking chair, flipping through a black magic book in his hand. The octagonal table was filled with a pile of dark magic books called Taboo by the Ministry of Magic. At the same time, there was a cup of steaming coffee placed in front of Lester. The life of the powerful is so ordinary. Lester took a sip of coffee and couldn't help expressing emotion. At this moment, there was a knock on the door, and Lester yelled to come in. Afterwards, Victor walked in excitedly with a broomstick. Looking at the familiar broomstick in Victor's hand, Lester was refreshed. Isn't this the rocket crossbow in the original book? Before Lester could speak, Victor greeted him respectfully and couldn't wait to introduce. Grandpa Lai, I have thoroughly researched the blueprint you gave me, and now the finished product has been produced. Take a look. Sure enough, when I first came back, I gave Victor the blueprint of the enhanced version of the rocket crossbow. Unexpectedly, in just a few days, Victor developed the finished product. After receiving the rocket crossbow, Lester immediately began to experiment in the principal's office. He is rich and powerful now, and the building in the principal's office is also extremely large, adding up to a full 300 square meters, which is enough for Lester to test ride a broomstick. That's right, can it be mass-produced? After landing, Lester casually put the rocket crossbow on the table. Victor hurriedly said, Yes, Mr. Lai, the blueprint you gave me is amazing. You actually wrote all the data clearly. I have thoroughly researched this blueprint with the students in the mechanical training class. As long as the factory is opened, mass production can be carried out. Lester was overjoyed. This Victor is really talented. He figured out the rocket crossbow so quickly. How many rocket crossbows can your laboratory produce in a day? Lester asked. 5, Victor replied, as if he was afraid that Lester would be dissatisfied. Victor explained, because our manpower is limited, we can only produce 5 a day. But if wizard workers are recruited and mechanized production is carried out, the production of rocket crossbows can definitely be greatly improved. Lester was very satisfied. Don't worry too much. You just need to produce 100 rocket crossbows now. As for the factory, I will arrange it myself. Victor was overjoyed, left the rocket crossbow to Lester, and then left the principal's office. After Victor left, Lester's joy had already surfaced on his face. The rocket crossbow is finally ready to be launched, and its own Azkaban interest group will finally have its first profit point. The methods used by the prisoners to get money were all illegal means, and they were disorganized and undisciplined, all relying on their own strong strength and psychological qualities that could be called insanity. But this will not be a big deal. There must be a long-term profitable project in order to make this big ship go longer. The current performance of the rocket crossbow absolutely crushes all the broomsticks on the market. I believe that as soon as the rocket crossbow comes out, All Quidditch lovers in the magic world will be crazy about it. At that time, I can make money with sacks. Biao, Hafiz, you too come here. Lester picked up the walkie-talkie and said calmly. A few minutes later, Song Biao and Hafiz came in and greeted respectfully. Lester handed them the rocket crossbow on the table and said calmly, "Do we have a store in Diagon Alley? I plan to open a broomstick store." Yes, yes, Song Biao hurriedly said. Before we copied the homes of the 3 pureblood families in Flint, there were several land deeds in Diagon Alley. Now those stores are already in our hands, and we can use them as long as we need them. Lester was very satisfied. How are the locations of those shops? When opening a store to sell things, the smell of wine is also afraid of deep alleys. If the store is too small or the location is not good, it will greatly affect sales. Song Biao said with a strange expression, "Master Lai, the locations of those shops are very good, and the largest one is located in the central area of Diagon Alley. And the most coincidental thing is that the shop is leased by the Flint family to the Nimbus Company, and they also sell broomsticks. Colleagues are enemies, and there are many broomstick companies in the magic world. Among them, Lightwheel Company is a behemoth, monopolizing the broomstick market in the magic world of in-country for decades. The most important thing is that this Nimbus Company is very arrogant." Song Biao's face was extremely ugly. Before we took the land deed of the Flint family and asked them for rent, they actually kicked our people out. Also said that Old Flint rented the shop to them, and they would only pay the rent if Old Flint asked them for money, and called us robbers. At that time, we were all busy kidnapping Ba, going to invite Mr. Malfoy to come to Azkaban as a guest, so we ignored them. Not paying rent to himself and calling himself a robber, Lester was going to be laughed at by the arrogant Nimbus Company. Tell their people in charge, now, take their trash and get the hell out of my shop. If they don't cooperate, just lead someone to drive them all out. This is ridiculous. A small Nimbus Company actually bullied themselves. Diagon Alley was sunny and crowded with people, as usual. In just a few months, the prosperity of Diagon Alley has returned to the past, and there is no trace of terrorist attacks by the Sioux people. Boom! With a loud bang, a hole was smashed into the luxury glass of the Nimbus broomstick shop, and several figures flew out. One of the middle-aged men in Huapao was even more indignant and shouted at the shop on the street, "Do you still have Wong F.A.? This is the shop of Guangluan Company. Come on, someone is smashing and looting in Diagon Alley." As soon as the words fell, a group of people immediately surrounded him, pointing at the man. "It's too much. Is there any Auror in charge? This store is obviously well run. Could it be that the Sioux people came back again, my God?" Seeing that there were more and more people, the store manager immediately got up and shouted, "Look, is there any law left? I was staying in the store well, but in the end, these bullies broke in directly. We were typed out, everyone come and see." The people who eat melons don't think it's a big deal to watch the excitement, and they all open their mouths to support the poor store manager. There are even more irritable ones, seeing that everyone around them is denouncing bullies, and they're ready to put on a show in front of everyone. Ron's father, Arthur Weasley, straightened his collar, coughed twice, and walked out. "I'm Arthur Weasley, a friend inside. Your actions are too domineering." Bar. Ron's father happened to be passing by, and he saw this kind of thing by chance. With a sense of justice, he naturally couldn't stand by and watch. After a while, Song Biao came out of the shop with a few boys and glanced at Arthur Weasley. When Song Biao came out, Arthur only felt a little bad. Not good. Arthur's heart was full of alarm bells. He seemed to have seen the leading man with the flesh at the train station. He was the bodyguard of Lester. Song Biao came to Arthur with a horseboy, and he snorted coldly. "Why? Do you have an opinion?" Arthur was sweating coldly behind his back. This group of ruthless people even dared to kidnap the director's son. Although he was backed by Dumbledore, Dumbledore hadn't cared about his Weasley family at all these years, and he didn't know friendships from 10 years ago are no longer relevant. Forget it, for the sake of his family. Arthur decided to endure it. "I have an opinion. Of course I have an opinion." Arthur was very stubborn, pointing at the wailing men, and said angrily, "These people are really too much. They don't go through the door. They insist on coming out of the window. Encase the glass, what should I do if I hurt the children? I must condemn them properly. Boscombe. Arthur walked up to the shopkeeper, who was still in mourning, and opened his mouth to spit thick phlegm into the shopkeeper's mouth. Ah! The male shopkeeper's voice stopped instantly. He was given to the card owner by Arthur's thick phlegm. Arthur dismissed it and said angrily, "This is a lesson for you. You are not allowed to do this in the future." After finishing speaking, Arthur smiled at Song Biao twice and then left very coolly. Song Biao. Seeing the back of Arthur leaving, Song Biao was a little speechless. Damn, this fat man is really talented. Song Biao looked at the dissatisfied crowd around him, ignoring Arthur, who fled. Everyone, don't be fooled by these people. Shaking his head, Song Biao held up the land deed in his hand and said loudly, "This is the land deed of the shop, so this shop should belong to our Bade Group. People from Guanglu and Company haven't paid us rent for 3 months, so it is reasonable and legal for us, Bade Group, to force us to take back the shop." It was also a coincidence. As soon as Song Biao took out the title deed, 3 senior officials of the Ministry of Magic rushed out from the corner. The senior officials first glanced at the land deed briefly, and then immediately said loudly, "This gentleman's land deed is real. As the owner of the land deed, he has the right to take back his shop. And after our serious investigation just now, it is completely true that the Light Wheel Company has not paid the rent for 3 months. According to the law of the Ministry of Magic, the Light Wheel Company can return the store if it needs it, and pay 3 times the rent, which is 10,000 gold plus long." Oh my god, 10,000 galleons. 10,000 galleons are enough to spend in a lifetime. All passers-by were shocked. Now, the authority of the Ministry of Magic is still very high. Basically, the people of the Ministry of Magic will believe whatever the officials say. When several officials confirmed the legitimacy of the land deed, these people who eat melons immediately turned against each other. At this time, the male shopkeeper who was screaming just now has shut up. He is not a fool. He could become the shopkeeper of the flagship store of Light Wheel Company as a muggle wizard. He relies on his eyesight. In fact, when Song Biao and others came to ask for the rent before, he wanted to give it to him. However, the eldest son of the company owner at that time insisted on taking the rent away and said that Song Biao and others were small roles, so don't care. Looking at it now, how could Song Biao and others be minor characters? Just after showing the land deed, a senior official from the Ministry of Magic came to endorse it. Is this TM a minor character? He was the shopkeeper just to survive in the magic world, not willing to work for the Light Wheel Company. Resign. The male shopkeeper made up his mind. He obviously didn't pay the rent for 1 month. According to the officials, it turned into 3 months, and he had to pay 3 times the compensation. It has something to do with the Ministry of Magic. Its hands and eyes. Such a strong background is not necessarily worse than Light Wheel Company. So, he is a small person who cannot be provoked. Why can't he resign? The male shopkeeper immediately stood up, patted the dust off his body, and flattered Song Biao. "Brother, it's all a misunderstanding. The matter of the rent is all up to the eldest son, and has nothing to do with the people below us. But brother, don't worry. 3 months' rent, plus 3 times the compensation, Guanglu and Company will definitely pay you, and I am willing to testify to you." Song Biao, patting the shoulder of the male shopkeeper, Song Biao said with a complicated expression, "Yes, you will thank you for your choice today." Seeing that the shopkeeper had surrendered, the other shop assistants who were beaten out immediately stood up, flattering Song Biao one after another. Seeing the clerks who expressed their willingness to cooperate and want to testify for themselves and ask for the rent back, Song Biao was silent. After a long time, he shook his head toward the corner, mouthing, "The plan is cancelled. Stop asking for their home addresses." Seeing that there was no excitement to watch, those wizards who were eating melons left one after another, and Diagon Alley returned to calm again. In this way, the former Nimbus broom shop disappeared in Diagon Alley, and a business group called Bader replaced the Nimbus broom and quietly appeared in Diagon Alley. Azkaban, inside the principal's office. Master Lai, the shop in Diagon Alley has been renovated. Sang Biao said respectfully. Look, when will we open for business? Don't worry. Lester took a sip of his coffee and said calmly, before opening, I plan to advertise for Rocket Crossbow. Advertising? Song Biao looked puzzled. Song Biao, who only knows how to use the killing curse to blow other people's heads, finds it difficult to understand the advanced business concept of advertising. Lester looked disgusted, waved his hands, and said, Okay, I can't explain it to you. Go and call Leonard and Brian over. The wretched old man Leona, besides himself, is the old man who knows the language best in Azkaban. Brian, the former Quidditch superstar, is now the captain of the Azkaban Quidditch prison team and the professor of the snitch class. Lester thinks that in Azkaban, if anyone wants to find someone with a brain, it is Leonard. A few minutes later, Leona and Brian came to the principal's office, and Lester also told them about his plan to advertise. Advertising? Leonard was also puzzled for a moment, and then immediately excitedly said, Master Lie is amazing. I feel that advertising is very necessary. Our rocket crossbow has the best performance in the entire magic world, but no one knows, and no one will buy it then. So we have to make an advertisement to let everyone know the performance of our rocket crossbow. Brian was also very happy. He advertised a broomstick like the rocket crossbow, and even asked him to come. Isn't that just letting him go out of the country? It's so cool. Becoming a big star and advertising for broomsticks is the lifelong dream of every Quidditch player. Master Lie, I would like to appear in your commercial. Brian was very excited and said first. Lester gave Brian a very weird look and asked again worriedly, Really willing? Real. I'll ask you one last time. If you really want to, answer carefully. You can't go back on your word this time. Yes, Lord Lie, Brian, am willing. Even 100 times, I am willing to. Brian said loudly, Isn't it just a shoot an advertisement for the broomstick? Why would he not want such a good thing? Master Lie is also true. He made an advertisement and said that it was like asking him to surrender his life to be a death squad. As for asking so many times, great. Lester clapped his hands excitedly, took out 2 A4 papers that he had prepared earlier, and handed them to Brian and Leonard. This is the plot of the ad I prepared for you. Leonore, you're the chief director in charge of planning, and you, Brian, are the only leading actor in the ad. Be good. Thank you, Lord Lie. Brian was very excited. His eyes were shining with a powerful light. He, Brian, the former Quidditch genius, was about to return to the public eye. Brian has always seen the power of Master Lie's Azkaban group in a magic world, and it is not an exaggeration to say that it is overshadowed by one hand. This kind of boss wants to shoot an advertisement in person. Even if it is a piece of shit, it can become popular in the entire magic world. What's more, how could the commercial shot by Master Lie be shit? Definitely the best of the best. With excitement, Brian began to flip through the plot of Lester's improved advertisement. After a few minutes, Brian's expression froze. What's the matter, Brian? Do you have any suggestions for the content of the advertisement? Lester asked with a smile. Brian, looking at the smiling Lester, Brian forcibly swallowed the complaints that came to his lips, but his expression was still the same as that of a dead mother. Master Lie, do you really intend to let Song Biao and the others chase me down on a broomstick, and then I'll take them around the entire Diagon Alley? Brian couldn't believe his eyes. Lester's ad was nothing like the one he believed in. The other advertisements were all staged after setting up the venue, but Master Lie's advertisement was actually a fucking real shot. It would be fine if only his own people like Song Biao chased him down. In the advertisement, there would even be an unknown black wizard. The content of the advertisement is very simple and crude. As the protagonist Brian, the task is also very simple. You only need to come to the Foley family in Nocturne Alley, in front of the ancestral house, cast a few blasting curses on their ancestral house, and then curse the ancestor of the Foley family 18 generation. At that time, the Foley family will definitely be furious and send people to chase and kill Brian, and Brian only needs to ride a broomstick and escape. Of course, don't worry, Song Biao and the others will protect you. Lester reassured. And think about it. Only real shots can show the power of our rocket crossbows, and we can compete with rubbish like the Nimbus 2000. Brooms have contrast. Lester knew that he couldn't control Brian's pressure, but also needed to give him some benefits. You kick and have fun secretly if you can be the protagonist. At that time, I will call the entire magic world and all the editors of the newspapers to take pictures for you. You dodge the death-killing curse. Bah! Your heroic posture when you dodge those insignificant little curses that won't kill people will also be faithfully recorded by the camera. I'll tell you the truth. I've already prepared 10 of the most popular newspapers in the magic world, including the Daily Prophet. As long as you perform well, the newspapers will be full of your heroic figure of avoiding the curse for a whole month. How about it? Dare you say a word? Master Lie, needless to say, I did it. Brian blushed excitedly and said loudly, "A man was born between heaven and earth. How can he be depressed and live under others for a long time? Brian, will go to practice flying skills now, and I will definitely show you a good performance so that you won't lose face." After speaking, Brian left with a rocket crossbow in his hand. After Brian left, the wretched old man Leona finally spoke. Master Lie, can he bear to bully Brian so much? Different from the content on Brian's A4 paper, as the director, the wretched old man naturally had a few more lines on the A4 paper. For example, spreading rumors that Brian is actually the counterfeit drug dealer. Hit the sap of the patriarchs of several pure-blooded dark wizard families, took nude photos, and threatened them in the name of Brian. They even specially transported a group of radical wizards from the Soviet Union riding big trees, and told them that Brian was actually Dumbledore's lackey, and that it was the inferior potion that Brian had spread in the Soviet Union. At that time, it is estimated that most of the wizarding world will send people to hunt down poor Brian. Can this former Quidditch star really stand it? Don't worry. Lester patted the wretched old man Leonard on the shoulder and said lightly, "Brian is a lucky boy, so nothing will happen to him. And when the time comes, I will go with him. His life is absolutely safe." That's it. You are in charge of the arrangements. 3 days later, on Saturday, when Diagon Alley has the most people, I want to see the commercial shooting. In the past few days, the atmosphere in Diagon Alley and Nocturne Alley has been abnormal. There were gossip reports that quite a few leaders of dark wizard families suddenly vomited blood in the study and shouted that they wanted to tear someone into pieces. Not only that, the number of Sioux people in the Nocturne Alley slum has also increased. They have a cold face every day, and everyone they see is a cynical face. The Ministry of Magic, which had just settled down in Sioux State, sent a group of Sioux State broomstick athletes to exchange feelings with the Quidditch players in Ing State. However, unlike the wizards of Ingwa who rode brooms, the people of Subwa usually rode flying trees to play Quidditch. These top pilots in the Soviet Union did not choose to live in the luxurious reception room arranged by the Ministry of Magic. Instead, they insisted on renting a room in the Leaky Cauldron Bar at the entrance of Diagon Alley. I don't know why. At this moment, when the sun was shining brightly, Brian held a rocket crossbow and came to the ancestral house of the Foley family bitterly and bitterly. The gate of the Foley family is very majestic. There are 2 giant dragon stone carvings standing in front of the gate. The 5-meter-high gate is carved with various gorgeous patterns. 2 imposing wizards stood on both sides of the gate. Their eyes were like eagles, watching every wizard who came to visit. The Foley family is the largest dark wizard family in the entire wizarding world, and there are countless wizards who come to ask the Foley family to do business every day. Brian rubbed his face, pretended to be arrogant and domineering, and raised his legs to sell through the gate. Not surprisingly, he was stopped. "Wait!" A wizard guard with a slightly protruding forehead stopped him and said unceremoniously, "What about the invitation card? Without an invitation card, you can't enter." I don't know where the cat and dog came from. The black wizards in the countryside have no experience. They don't even know that they need invitations to visit our Foley family. The Foley family is very domineering and has issued many invitations to the outside world. Only those who hold the invitations can come to the ancestral home to do business with them. Brian's expression darkened. He snorted coldly, casually took out an envelope from his pocket, and handed it carelessly. I don't have an invitation, but I have something urgent to do now. Let me in quickly, otherwise you can't afford it." The dark wizard smiled disdainfully, looked at the envelope, and his eyelids twitched. There was actually a Hogwarts logo painted on the envelope. This! The black wizard guard panicked and didn't dare to take it apart. First, he bowed respectfully to Brian. "Sir, please go ahead. I'll ask the master for instructions." After finishing speaking, the black wizard guard winked at the other guard and told him to take Brian in, and then he quickly ran to the inner courtyard. A few minutes later, the envelope reached Tianting directly and was delivered to the patriarch of the Foley family, Old Foley. In the study room, Old Foley looked at the iconic parchment with the familiar logos of the 4 colleges on it and felt his mouth was dry. "You go out first." Old Foley waved his hand, letting the guards who delivered the letter go out, leaving only himself in the study. Old Foley can be sure that this paper is the special paper of Hogwarts College, and this paper will only be used when issuing student transcripts and admission notices. Opening the envelope carefully, a bright phoenix tail feather appeared in front of Old Foley. God, it really was Dumbledore writing him a letter. The content of the letter was very simple. Principal Dumbledore had something important to tell him to do. Because the matter was too big, he dared not write it on paper, so he sent Brian to tell him face to face. Old Foley suddenly became restless. Although Dumbledore doesn't take much action now, his past achievements are vivid in his memory, and there are rumors of Dumbledore recently. Many major events are attributed to Dumbledore. Now that the old man has found himself, he has to tell him to do things. No matter what, Old Foley didn't dare to offend this powerful old man. Soon, Old Foley saw Brian. "Hello, sir. You are young and promising, and you are so highly valued by Principal Dumbledore at such a young age." Old Foley said flatteringly, "I don't know. Principal Dumbledore has spent so much time and effort. Is there anything that needs the cooperation of the Foley family? But please rest assured, no matter what the principal asks us to do, our Foley family will do our best to complete it." His son's testicles were cut, and the family business was affected by counterfeit medicines. Now the situation of the Foley family is not good. "Patriarch Foley, you are welcome." Brian smiled, took a few steps closer, and said in a low voice, "Patriarch, come over here. This matter involves too many people, too many things. I am afraid that the entire magic world, everything will change." Old Foley was startled immediately. He didn't suspect him and hurried over. At this moment, I saw Brian's ferocious face, and his voice was like falling into an ice cave. "Chief Foley, Principal Dumbledore asked me to give you a ride. Awada eats a big melon." Old Foley raised his head abruptly, only to see Brian's left hand firmly grasping his sleeve and his right hand holding a magic wand firmly on his forehead. The breath of death made Old Foley almost piss in fear, and the pampering all year round made him feel a little weak now. This is a death-killing curse, but if you touch anything, you will die suddenly, and such a close-range death-killing curse. Old Foley is probably dead. But at this critical moment, with a crack, the floor under Brian's feet actually cracked, and Brian slipped and took a few steps back uncontrollably. The killing curse in his hand also changed direction, flying past Old Foley's scalp. It's so weird, seeing that I'm about to die, but still alive. God help me too. Old Foley was overjoyed, jumped up suddenly, and ran towards the load-bearing pillar in the room. Holding a magic wand, Brian chased after him with a ferocious face. He hit Old Foley with killing curses one after another, but all of them hit Old Foley's feet inexplicably. "Come on!" Old Foley shouted loudly, regardless of his face. A few seconds later, there were dozens of hurried footsteps outside, and Brian knew that the situation was over, so he took out the rocket crossbow that he had prepared long ago. "Old Foley, how dare you disrespect Headmaster Dumbledore? After I go back, I will truthfully tell the headmaster all this." After all, Brian kicked his feet and fled swaggeringly on the rocket crossbow. Old Foley was going to explode in anger. He said angrily to the guard who came late, "Are you all blind? Hurry up and chase after him." "Fucking Dumbledore. If you want to kill me, I must let you know that rabbits will bite when they are in a hurry. and I will make you pay the price." Just as Brian took off, several cadaver curses were shot from behind, flying past his scalp, scaring him into a cold sweat. Afterwards, dozens of black wizards, riding the latest model of the Nimbus 2000, took off into the air and pursued them. At the same time, an envelope was stuffed into the leaky cauldron, the room of the Sioux people. A few minutes later, a big hole was blasted out of the wall on the second floor of the leaky cauldron bar. 7 top Quidditch players from the Soviet Union rode flying trees and flew towards Diagon Alley with a murderous look. Not only that, when Brian first arrived in Diagon Alley, Song Biao and others who had been waiting for a long time also silently put on their hoodies, rode on their broomsticks, and took to the air. Diagon Alley, on Saturday, the busiest street in the wizarding world, was packed with wizards, and every shop was packed to the brim. "Mom, what is flying in the sky?" a chubby little girl asked curiously while holding her mother's sleeve. The mother didn't even look at it, so she smiled and said, "Little girl, that's a broomstick, a prop for Quidditch matches. You can play it after you go to Hogwarts." It's okay not to mention it, but the little girl actually cried, "Mom, my daughter doesn't want to play Quidditch. Quidditch looks so dangerous." The mother smiled and said softly, "Son, Quidditch is not dangerous." But why did they hit the man in front with the green spell? It looks so pitiful." Mother's expression froze. She looked up and suddenly panicked. In the sky above Diagon Alley, a young man riding a very delicate broomstick was doing various difficult movements in the air. Behind them is a group of vicious black wizards who continuously cast the 3 unforgivable curses with a ferocious face. Awada eats a big melon. Cruciate. Insomnia. Mother, maybe they're doing drills? Mother was a little hesitant. Since the last terrorist attack by the Sioux people, the Ministry of Magic has hosted drills from time to time, but this time the scene is bigger. Boom! Suddenly, a loud noise resounded in the air, and several big trees broke into the sky above Diagon Alley at high speed, and they were covered with the signs of the Soviet people. "Ola! Ola!" 7 top Quidditch players from the Soviet Union traveled thousands of miles to England with only one mission. That is to assassinate Dumbledore's illegitimate son, Brian. Damn it, Sioux people. Brian was so frightened that he almost peed, and I didn't tell him that there were people from Sioux. The wizards of In Country Below were also frightened, dumbfounded. The attack of Sioux country terrorists at the meeting was still vivid in their minds. In the blink of an eye, the people of Sioux country came again. Run. Must hide. Diagon Alley suddenly became a mess. In order to avoid being accidentally injured, everyone rushed into the shops on the side of the road. People were crowded, but no one complained because life was the most important thing. After everyone found out that the group of Sioux people did not carry out indiscriminate attacks, but chased and killed Brian crazily, many people were relieved and even had a big heart. They leaned out of the window and witnessed this incident with their own eyes. Diagon Alley air battle. At this time, not only Brian was stunned, but even the subordinates of the Foley family were stunned. They didn't know what was going on, but they sent 10 black wizards who were proficient in the killing curse. As soon as they flew out of Nocturne Alley, a flying brigade of more than 20 people jumped out beside them. Not only are they each riding the latest Nimbus 2000, but they also play the 3 unforgivable curses 6 times better than them. If they hadn't chased and killed Brian, they seemed to be their own people, and the dark wizards of the Foley family would have been scared away long ago. Up. Now, just after chasing Diagon Alley, another group of Sioux people came. Since the last terrorist attack in Diagon Alley, Sioux people have become synonymous with terror. They're just black wizards, and they are of the nature of the underworld. Even if they violate the law, they dare not go too far. But the Sioux people, they are at the level of terrorists, and they are more powerful than them in suicide attacks. Brian is now like a panicked rabbit. Behind him are more than 50 wolves, tigers, and leopards, riding a rocket crossbow. In order to survive, all kinds of dangerous Quidditch moves are free use. Brian kept using Wronski's fake moves during the teleportation. Even a melon-eating wizard's watching in a shop broke into a cold sweat for Brian. Brian rushed to the ground like lightning, pretending to throw away the broomstick and escape. Just as he touched the ground, Brian stopped abruptly, then lifted the broom head and flew into the sky again. Brian has a powerful rocket crossbow, and his own skills are beyond peerless. So every time Ronsky makes a fake move, several black wizards can be hit hard on the ground, and they are thrown to pieces. The unlucky ones were even thrown to death directly. Even Sue's top Quidditch player was tricked into two, and the two old men fell to the ground violently, spitting blood, not knowing whether they were alive or dead. So I'm hanging like this? Brian looked back at the dark wizards who were gnashing their teeth behind his buttocks, and finally realized how powerful the rocket crossbow was. So Brian made a move that made everyone's jaws drop. He actually took out his wand and fought back. Disarm you. While riding a fast-moving rocket crossbow, Brian kept turning his head and shot the disarming spell, and the disarming spell was very accurate. Every time Brian issued a disarming spell, one of the black wizards behind him would scream, then fell to the ground and broke into pieces. Awada eats a big melon. Disarm you. In this way, relying on the high mobility of the rocket crossbow, Brian actually started to kite over Diagon Alley, decelerating from time to time to approach the dark wizard, throwing a disarming spell, and immediately speeding up to get away from the distance. Behind Brian, Lester rode the Nimbus 2000, wrapped in a black robe, cast a disarming spell on the black wizard in front of him expressionlessly. A few seconds later, a scream resounded throughout Diagon Alley, and another dark wizard was thrown to pieces. Seeing this, Sang Biao rode over on a broomstick. Master Lai, we've almost killed all the black wizards of the Foley family. Will they find anything unusual? Lester looked back and scanned around. There were only 30 people left in the Broom Brigade with 50 people before, of which 20 were his own people, and there were 5 black wizards from the Foley family. 5 Quidditch players from the Soviet Union. Leona, have you taken all the photos? Lester turned around and asked. Sang Biao replied, all the top 10 newspapers in the magic world are here. From Brian's flight into Diagon Alley to Brian's battle against Kim Yui, the whole process has been recorded. Very good. Tell Brian that you can fly to Nocturne Alley after doing a few difficult moves. Now that the advertisement has been done, there is no need for this group of people to exist. It is time to end this advertisement. A few minutes later, Brian performed a few more acrobatics in the air, which attracted a lot of amazement, and then flew straight in the direction of Nocturne Alley. On the way, Brian passed by the newly opened shop of the Light Wheel Company and leaned over without any hesitation. Sang Biao and others also seized the opportunity to bombard this brand new store that had just been renovated and hadn't opened the door. In a blink of an eye, the store that was finally renovated turned into ruins. Light Wheel Company boss, hiding in the corner of Lehan Bookstore, he watched helplessly that the shop he had finally renovated was smashed into ruins by the Black Wizard, but he didn't dare to speak. Originally, he was going to find out the origin of the Bay Group today and stop by to hold the opening ceremony of the new store. Now it seems that the ceremony may not need to be held. Facing this group of dark wizards who dared to use the death curse to bombard Diagon Alley, he could only smash his teeth and swallow it. Although his Light Wheel Company is also a big business, he is still very self-aware when facing a black wizard who kills at every turn. After Brian left with the dark wizards, the wizards of the country of Ing from the shop took to the streets, discussing loudly what happened just now. The man in black is like a lightning bolt, so fast, too strong. Is he a member of our Ingwa Quidditch national team? His skills are simply the best in the world. Compared to that person, I'm more interested in the broomstick under his crotch. Didn't you realize that it's a broomstick that hasn't appeared on the market yet? The entire Diagon Alley was full of discussions and celebrations. Fortunately, the group of black wizards did not hurt innocent people, so they still had the opportunity to discuss on the street. Just when they thought that Brian had escaped and would not come back, an exclamation sounded from the crowd. Look, that man is back. People raised their necks one after another, searching desperately in the sky. In the blue sky, a black bolt of lightning quickly slid over the people's heads, and the strong wind it brought blew their hair to pieces. Arriving at the center of Diagon Alley, Brian stopped steadily in front of the rocket crossbow clothing store, showing a charming smile. Oh my God, he's so handsome. I want to give him monkeys. Bitch, you are also worthy of giving birth to a monkey with my brother. Get the hell out of me, brother. I love you, brother. With his handsome appearance and his previous cool flying movements, Brian immediately gained countless female fans. The arrival of Brian has long affected the normal order of Diagon Alley. Everyone flocked to get close to Brian, asking who he is, why he has such superb flying skills, and the broomstick under his crotch what brand again. They were fast, but some professionals were even faster. The reporters from the Daily Prophet and various newspapers and magazines who came over after hearing the news were all as excited as blue birds and animals, shooting all kinds of camera film frantically. A female reporter with a Daily Prophet badge on her chest, which said Rita Skeeter, was the first to rush to Brian and interviewed. Hi, this is the Daily Prophet. Reporter, may I ask you a few questions? Brian didn't answer, and first cast his gaze to a corner not far away, and after seeing the wretched old man, Leah nodded to him. Brian smiled at Rita. Of course, I'm happy to accept your interview. Later, with the cooperation of the professional old reporter Rita, Brian eloquently described how he broke through the illegal transactions of the Black Wizards, was chased and killed, and finally completed the counterkill. He even slandered a bunch of people from Sioux Country, saying that they came to Ing Country to deliver the terrible magic bomb to blow up Hogwarts, and when they traded with the local dark wizard, they were smashed by themselves, so they chased after them in Angeron. God, Brian, you are really a hero in our wizarding world. Please allow me to express my highest respect to you on behalf of all the students and parents of Hogwarts. Rita pretended to bow to Brian, and the surrounding crowd applauded even more. Brian has paid so much, so Lester naturally can't treat him badly, so a second-class medal of the Order of Merlin may not be able to escape. Then, by the way, which company's product is the broomstick you're riding? Finally, Rita asked the topic. Brian smiled and immediately went through the draft that he had memorized thousands of times skillfully in his mind, and then talked freely in front of everyone in Diagon Alley. My broomstick is 100 times stronger than the broomsticks on the market. Brian pretended to be very disdainful. The broomsticks of those 4 junk broomstick companies are like fire sticks compared to it. As soon as this remark came out, there was an uproar, sweeping the Sweeping Broom Company, Comet Trading Company, Nimbus Racing Broom Company, and Randolph Badmore. This is a giant company in the broomstick industry, almost monopolizing the broomsticks in the entire magic world. With the development of the Times, Sweeping, Comet, and Randolph, these 3 companies have been abandoned by the Times, and the products they produced have become uninterested. But Nimbus Company, this is the largest broomstick company in the entire wizarding world, and the products it produces are even more top-notch among the broomsticks. Even the new Nimbus 2000 from Nimbus isn't on par. Rita asked. Brian was very confident. Of course. As he said that, Brian shouted to the surrounding crowd. Are there any fans of Nimbus Broom here? If you're not convinced, you can come up and compete with me. I come. Just when everyone thought that no one would come out to take their own humiliation, a middle-aged man in a Chinese robe with a calm and dignified face slowly walked out of the crowd with steady steps. Chairman Broom. A man who looked like a secretary handed a brand new light wheel broom into the man's hand, and then slowly backed away. Devlin Whitehorn, the chairman of Light Wheel Company, never thought that such a big man would be here. Soon some wizards recognized Devlin's identity, the chairman of Light Wheel Company, and a powerful figure in the magic world. This is the Light Wheel 2001 newly developed by our Light Wheel Company. You say our Light Wheel group is rubbish. Do you dare to compare it? Devlin was full of confidence. Brian smiled disdainfully. What dare not? In the distance, Leona's face turned black. Staring at the chairman of Light Wheel Company with a gloomy expression, his heart was already moved to death. Dog, broke in at this time. Didn't you give me Leona eye drops? According to the plan, the next one would be Azkaban's own people, who would come out to compete and then be crushed severely in order to set off the strength of the rocket crossbow. Although Leona is very confident about whether the rocket crossbow will win, The appearance of the boss of Light Wheel Company is obviously an accident. If Master Lai knew about this, he would definitely be dissatisfied with his work efficiency. Devlin Whitehorn, enjoy your few moments. The wretched old man Leonard thought sullenly. Young man, your flying skills are very good. Would you like to work for a Light Wheel Company? President Devlin didn't rush to start the game, but instead recruited Brian. Brian didn't answer, but looked pitifully at Devlin. Damn, this young man is actually pitying himself, the president of this giant group. It's useless to talk. Let's start the game. Brian said coldly. He didn't want to talk too much to the dead. At this time, Franklin the Crowd was holding a Nimbus 2000 in his hand. His eyes were full of murderous intent, and he wished to cast a death curse on the President Devlin on the spot. Damn it, you dare to take his job? You really don't want to die? Devlin smiled and said softly, Young people, don't be too arrogant. I hope you can think about my words after the game. Puff. Brian showed disdain and said arrogantly, If you are not young and energetic, you are still called a young man? As soon as the words fell, the shutters of countless cameras sounded, and the reporters showed excitement, frantically recording the scene in front of them. President Devlin's face turned green, and he said bitterly, Very well. After the game, you must not cry. In this way, under the watchful eyes of all the wizards in Diagon Alley and the top 10 newspaper reporters in the magic world, the match began. Not surprisingly, Brian's rocket crossbow not only crushes the Nimbus 2001 in appearance, but also surpasses it in performance. Even if President Devlin got angry and called him a world-class Quidditch player, there was no rocket crossbow that could match Brian's. Sorry, sir, that broomstick is really fast. In front of all the media, the world-class Quidditch player said truthfully with a face of shame. Excited media, like sharks seeing blood, filmed frantically, and even some fast-handed reporters wrote tomorrow's manuscript. President Devlin was furious. He knew he couldn't compare, but he couldn't say it in front of all the media. You trash. The Nimbus Company has canceled your sponsorship. Get out. Devlin pointed at the athlete and cursed, then pushed away the crowd of onlookers very roughly and fled in despair. At this moment, no one paid attention to this poor, defeated dog, and everyone's attention was focused on Brian's rocket crossbow. Mr. Brian, is your rocket crossbow available in the market? Rita, the leading reporter of the Daily Prophet, asked again. Brian had no reservations. Actually, this rocket crossbow has not been released yet, but in 3 days the shop behind me will officially sell rocket crossbows. It was only then that everyone noticed the big shop behind Brian. This shop used to belong to the Nimbus Company, but now the signboard of the shop reads, Bader Group, Azkaban Company. There's a glass door in the middle and 2 huge floor-to-ceiling windows on both sides, so that you can clearly see everything in the store from the street. The white tiles covered the entire hall, and the soft lighting shone on the ground, making it very magnificent. Although there are no products in the store, there are already several large sofas, and there are several octagonal tables in front of the sofas, with several cups of hot coffee on them. Someone cautiously approached the door of the store, and then exclaimed, My God, there's a constant temperature spell inside. So warm. Everyone was boiling. When Lester designed this store, he completely referred to the design of the 4S store of the previous car company. For these wizards who lived in the 90s and 50s, it was a blow to dimensionality reduction. There's a large space of several thousand square meters, and the inside is even more picturesque. Who would not love such a store? The sound of the flash and the shutter of the camera never stopped, and all the reporters were fascinated to take pictures of this luxurious and elegant shop. Lester knew that the rocket crossbow had succeeded, and that his Bader Group had successfully broken into the magic world and killed everyone as soon as he appeared. Song Biao, go and find out if there are any muggle and wizard families in Nocturne Alley that have difficulties at home and can no longer afford to eat, and then ask them if they are willing to sell the house to us. By the way, forced buying and selling are not allowed. You can give as much as you want in the market. Of course, if you encounter greed, then you can deal with it confidently. Yes, Master Lot. Song Biao smiled grimly. Of course, he knew what it meant to handle it by himself. Victor's laboratory is used to develop new cutting-edge magic technology products for himself, and it is impossible to work overtime to produce rocket crossbows. Therefore, it is imminent to open a factory in the magic world. The workers in the factory must not be allowed to be prisoners, so they can't put the factory in their base camp. The risk of exposure is too great, and Nocturne Alley is a good place. Nocturne Alley has a vast area, and the slums of Muggle wizards are even more extensive. It is more than enough to demolish a large area to build rocket crossbow factories. At that time, after recruiting a group of employees from the magic world, your rocket crossbow can be sold. In the past few days, a top traffic superstar was born in the magic world, a flying genius, Brian. Not only was he personally nominated by Minister Fudge, who was in the limelight, for the second-class Medal of the Order of Merlin, but he also became the spokesperson for the rocket crossbow company of the Bader Group Rocket Crossbow Company. Just like Zaya Xiniang in 2009, Brian became famous overnight and became popular in the streets and alleys. Many young wizards even regarded Brian's words as their life motto and talked about them all day long. If you are not young and energetic, you are still called a young man. They played nonsense in the streets and alleys, shouting Brian's slogans in their mouths, and became Brian's loyal fans. In the newspapers, from the largest profit daily in the magic world to the third-rate self-media, the editor-in-chief of Luna's father is against the tune, and all of them are full of Brian's flying heroism. A true hero, a person worthy of our respect. The headline on the front page of the Daily Prophet reads, Brian, a flying genius who was framed. When he fell into a desperate situation, he did not resign himself to falling, but rose up to resist. He is a real man. Even Director Fudge, who is currently the most powerful in the entire magic world, specifically said in the interview, Brian, we all know that he is a good boy. If all the wizards in Kingdom can be like him, then we will conquer the whole world. Hafiz, who was the warden of Azkaban at the time, also expressed his high praise for Brian in a post and called on young people in the magical world to learn from Brian. In this way, Brian was on fire, and the fire was in a mess. The product he endorsed, the rocket crossbow, has become a treasure in the hearts of countless people. Before it is sold, there are hundreds of people squatting in front of the store, eagerly waiting for the door to open every day. Whem! In the headquarters of Guangluan Company, in the chairman's office, the big boss, Devlin, was furious at the newspaper in his hand. Fuck you, rocket crossbow. Fuck you, Brian. In the newspaper, Brian's arrogant words were repeated over and over again, and beside Brian, he was the foil. Okay, great, you mudbloods, you forced me to do this, Devlin said with madness on his face. In the past few days, the sales of Nimbus brooms have fallen to the bottom. If things go on like this, Nimbus will even face the embarrassing situation of bankruptcy. A few mudbloods think that they can enter the market to make money with the technology. Naive. Devlin took out the information he just found out. Before, he thought that the Bader Group was the property of the pure-blooded family in the magic world, so he was already planning to give up. However, he now finds out that the boss of this company is actually a mudblood, and he's also a Hogwarts student, which is really ridiculous. Devlin picked up the quill on the table, began to write quickly, and then gave the envelope to the owl. You have to be strong and influential when you come out to play. I have been friends with the Foley family for a long time. You mudbloods, just consider yourself unlucky. Devlin is very confident. As long as he writes a letter, the powerful family of dark wizards, the Foley family, will definitely be able to easily deal with those powerless mudbloods. By then, the technology of the rocket crossbow will be his own. Ha ha, a bunch of naive idiots. At this moment, in the study of the Foley family, the patriarch of the Foley family, Old Foley, who was loved by Devlin, was standing humbly in front of Lester, extremely humble. Master Lie, it is indeed Guzzy's fault. The matter of the compensation for the demolition was all due to his confusion. I beg you to let our Foley family go. Looking at the fierce Lester III in front of him, Old Foley really wanted to die. He thought that his Foley family could be considered a colossus in the magic world. As a result, a few days ago, Dumbledore actually sent someone to assassinate him directly. Now, these three big men even went directly to his study room, beat him up, and then cut off his dog's head. Old Foley had never been so humble at such a young age, but now, facing Lester, he only had a deep sense of powerlessness. As soon as he came up, he waved at himself, killing half of his life. Could Old Foley not be afraid of this kind of terrifying strength? Song Biao was not polite, and he just went up with a big mouth, cursing in his mouth. Damn it, shameless. Master Lai kindly spent money to buy land to set up a factory. Your dog's son dares to embarrass him? Damn it. What happened was very simple. Sang Biao went to the Muggle wizards in the slums to discuss the demolition issue. Many Muggle wizards were very happy and willing to move away. After getting a lot of demolition fees, they left honestly. But there is such a small group of Muggle wizards who are greedy and lions. Song Biao and the others' amiable behavior before made them think that Song Biao and the others were good people. Even if they opened their mouths, they couldn't do anything to themselves and even dared to threaten Song Biao. Brother Biao can't get used to their faults, trick them into a room, and kill them randomly with the death curse. In the end, he followed the clues and found out that someone was deliberately instigating behind him. So the old Foley's son, the little Foley whose balls were cut off by Quirrell, was arrested by Song Biao. It was the fault of the son not being the godfather. After Lester learned about it, he felt the need to chat with Old Foley. Master Lot, Old Foley knelt down while crying with snot and tears. Please let us go. We really know we were wrong. Old Foley could see how vicious these murderous guys in Lester were. They really dared to kill people, and they were TM massacres. In his Foley family, more than 20 dark wizards who were in charge of guarding the ancestral home were all killed as soon as they met. This level of cruelty scared him so much that he almost shouted, "Long live the Dark Lord." Lester had a half-smile on his face. You Foley family knew it was wrong? Biao, bring me his son. A few seconds later, Song Biao pressed a young man. An apparition appeared in the study. As soon as he saw Lester, he scolded Lester. Draft, I'm the sole heir of the Foley family. Damn it, you're dead. I'm going to tell my dad. I'm going to kill your whole dad. Why are you kneeling here? Old Foley. Treason. Old Foley was about to die of anger. His beard was about to fly into the sky. He pulled out his wand and hit his own son with crucifixion. Cruciate. Father, I know I was wrong. Cruciate. I'm in so much pain. Father, stop beating me. Looking at the little Foley who had twitched in a shrimp, Lester frowned and stopped the old Foley. Stop acting with me. I came here just to ask for the compensation we deserve. Not to see you. Foley, the family seeks revenge. Old Foley was overjoyed. He knew that the lives of his family were saved. Thank you, Master Lai. Thank you, Neezy, don't lie down. Thank you, Master Lai. Little Foley, Dad, that's not the disarming curse. That's cruciatus. How can I get up? Lester didn't get entangled with little Foley and said to old Flynn, Okay, Mr. Foley, Lester, I'm a businessman. Don't make me seem overbearing. We'll just talk about compensation now. Old Foley hurriedly said, Compensation must be made. Very good, that's it. In order to enrich the spiritual life of the wizards in Nocturne Alley, I plan to build a large Quidditch arena in Nocturne Alley on this land. Master Lai, don't worry, I'll come by. Our Foley family happens to have a large piece of free land in Nocturne Alley, and we are willing to use it to contribute to the people of Nocturne Alley. Lester is very satisfied. He plans to organize a team to play in the World Cup in the future, so he must get a professional venue. Now Old Foley is willing to subsidize the land. That's great. Then I would like to thank Mr. Flynn for his generosity. Lester thanked him, and then, under the awe-inspiring eyes of Old Foley, led Song Biao and others to apparate away. As soon as Lester left, Old Foley was relieved and lay down on the ground with the joy of being rescued on his face. At this moment, an owl flew over and put an envelope beside Old Foley. Old Foley, who was in a good mood, saw that it was a letter sent by the Light Wheel group, and, after resting for a few minutes, he slowly opened it. After watching for a few seconds, Old Foley's face turned green, and he wanted to kill someone gloomily. Ahu! A bow. Bring your people, and hurry to catch me the chairman of the Lightwell Group. Damn it, you almost killed me. Dad, I want to buy a rocket crossbow. In Diagon Alley, Malfoy took Lucius's hand and said coquettishly, Please buy me a rocket crossbow. Lucius said, Draco, do you have a fever? Why do you speak strangely? Malfoy blushed, coughed twice, and said seriously, Father, I need this rocket crossbow. In next year's competition, I will ride it to defeat Gryffindor. Only then did Lucius nodded in satisfaction. This is his little dragon, ruthless, the proud son of heaven. Don't worry, Father will buy it for you. Lucius pampered Malfoy's head. However, when the father and son arrived at the rocket crossbow shop, they were stunned. In front of the bright store, fanatical wizards were already crowded, and some people even waved the traceless expansion bags in their hands, shouting to buy rocket crossbows. Suddenly, the door of the store opened, and the enthusiastic customers outside jumped in. Oh my God, 1,000 galleons is actually the same price as the newly released Nimbus 2001. It's so affordable. This, wrap it up for me. Hurry up. In just a few minutes, the rocket crossbows that had just been placed in the shop were sold out, and the shop owner came out with an apologetic expression on his face. Sorry, today's rocket crossbows are sold out, so everyone, please come back tomorrow. The owner of the store is none other than the father of Fort, who is in the 5th grade of Slytherin. He was Thompson's younger brother at the time, but now he has taken refuge in Leicester. To buy horse bones with $1,000, Lester asked his father to work in his own trade union. Now that there's a broom shop, he was transferred to be the manager. Several other Muggle wizard shopping guides also apologized very sincerely. Although they had to apologize to the guests on the first day of work, no one was dissatisfied. The treatment in this shop can be regarded as the conscience of the industry. 20 galleons per month, food and accommodation are also included, and the most important thing is that they only work 8 hours a day. Oh my God, 8 hours. In fact, they couldn't believe it before. There are really 8 hours of work in the world. Moreover, ordinary service staff, due to the squeeze of pure blood and the imbalance between supply and demand, often only have a pitiful 10 gold galleons a month, which is not counted as food expenses. Therefore, the working conditions of the Beta Group are simply conscientious. Sir, I'm so sorry. We still have new rocket crossbows for sale every day. A Muggle wizard waiter had a smile on his face. Since we have just opened, our products need to be limited in supply. After 3 days, we will release the purchase quantity. Every waiter has no slack in the slightest, serving every dissatisfied guest seriously. Because their wages are not dead wages. As long as they sell rocket crossbows, they will have a commission of 1 silver sickle. Not only that, after the sales volume is high, their basic salary can also be increased. In the magic world, 5 galleons can support a family of 3 for a month. Who wouldn't want their salary to be higher? Sir, please sit down. Here is free coffee and tea. And there are biscuits here. Facing this group of smiling shopping guides, even though the customers were full of anger, they had nowhere to vent their anger. They stretched out their hands not to hit the smiling faces. They had no choice but to leave angrily and decided that they must be the first to break in tomorrow. In the shop, Malfoy looked at the sold-out rocket crossbows, very disappointed, and his frustration was written all over his face. Father, let's come back tomorrow. The rocket crossbow is sold out. Who said he sold out? Lucius was very confident, patted Malfoy on the shoulder, and said softly, Son, you are a noble Malfoy. As long as it is what you want, you can get it. Don't worry. Father will definitely let you get the rocket crossbow today. Lucius is very confident, and he doesn't know what happened recently. Fudge, the top official of the Ministry of Magic, unexpectedly expressed kindness to him very abruptly, and also gave a lot of care to the Malfoy family. Even the Ministry of Magic's first search for black magic props deliberately arranged to skip the Malfoy family. Now Lucius thinks that in the entire magic world, except for a few bigwigs, no one dares to lose face to him. By the way, except for those crazy dark wizards, they are really scary. If he didn't run fast, He would not be able to see his precious eldest son now. Confidently pulling Draco to the store manager, Lucius said lightly, "I'm Lucius Malfoy, and I want to see your boss." "My boss?" Forte shook his head politely and said, "Sorry, my boss is not in the store right now, so—" "Wait, that is my boss." At the door, Song Biao walked in swaggeringly, looking at the shop with great satisfaction. Lucius also looked in the direction of Ford's finger, and his face changed suddenly. "Is he your boss?" "Yeah. You're not looking for him. I will take you to see him right away." "No need." Lucius turned green all of a sudden. "Damn it, Yuanjia Road is narrow. Why did he knock down this crazy guy here?" "It suddenly occurred to me that your mother told us to go home on time for dinner." Draco, as a man, he must not slip up when he promises a woman. "So, can we buy the rocket crossbow tomorrow?" "Yes, father." Malfoy looked at his father admiringly, without doubting him. As expected of his father, the family of the Malfoy family, who held a high position, but did not forget his wife, which really made him feel admiration. In Nocturne Alley, in just 3 days, a large factory covering an area of 100,000 square meters was built near Nocturne Alley. On the first day of the successful construction of the factory, the Bade Rocket Crossbow Super Factory began to recruit workers in full swing. In order to increase the production of rocket crossbows, Lester decided to recruit 1,000 Muggle and Wizard employees in the first batch to be responsible for processing flying broomsticks on the assembly line. The treatment is also average, 30 galleons a month, which is barely comparable to the salary of ordinary employees of the Ministry of Magic. When the news came out that the Veldy Rocket and Crossbow Super Factory started to recruit workers, the entire magic world was boiling, and even the most popular ministerial election was hit by this recruitment news. With the rapid development of Muggle technology, the number of Muggles is increasing, which has led to a leap in the number of wizards in the entire wizarding world over the years. The number of wizards has increased, but the number of jobs has decreased. In order to suppress Muggle wizards, Pureblood would rather work hard to hire goblins or goblins than hire a Muggle wizard. Even a Muggle wizard would give up Social Security and Medicare, and a Pureblood would still choose to hire a goblin. As a result, the living conditions of Muggle wizards in the wizarding world are getting worse and worse. Many Muggle wizards have a deep resentment towards the Ministry of Magic and Hogwarts, believing that their oppression has made them impoverished. But now a super large factory is willing to recruit workers from the society. This is simply great news. Before Brian endorsed the rocket crossbow, no matter how popular the hype was, most wizards actually took it for fun, because that kind of broomstick was not something they could afford. Now, Veldy Rocket Crossbow Super Factory is recruiting workers. This is the news that is closely related to the lives of most wizards and can even change their fate. As soon as the recruitment news was released, thousands of wizards gathered in front of the Veldy Rocket Crossbow Super Factory. They wore outdated suits and even worn ties. They looked very downcast, but without exception, their eyes were full of hope. If they can enter the factory smoothly, then they are workers, and they will have a formal job in the magic world. They don't have to live in slums and risk being killed by black wizards in the streets. Their children don't have to apply for poverty benefits when they go to school, holding old books that are no longer legible. Their parents will not worry about their gray hair and go to great lengths to ask for help to find a job in the Muggle world for them, who only have a Muggle primary school degree. Boom! With a loud sound of opening the door, the gate of Veldy Super Rocket Crossbow Factory was opened. The wretched old man Leonard was wearing a gorgeous suit, walking in the front like a dog, and behind him was an excellent student in the language class who was wearing a white shirt and looked like a dog. In Azkaban, the most talented person in management is undoubtedly Leonard. Therefore, Lester believed that Leonard was the director of the Bader Super Factory, and he also hired many outstanding students in the language class to become the middle management of the factory. As soon as Leonard came out, he was startled by the sea of people in front of him. Some people may not know what it means to gather thousands of people together. In the island country of the Warring States period, this group of people could even start a war of destroying the country. Rao, who had seen big scenes before, felt a little shivering in his calves. "Are you here to apply for the job?" Leonard asked very uncertainly. If this group of people came to find fault, even if Dumbledore was present, they would still be tortured to death by them. "Yes, sir. Sir, I beg you, please hire me. My father was hospitalized and couldn't afford the medical bills. The doctors in the hospital actually threw my father out. I beg you to hire me." Leonard waved his hand. "Okay, everyone is quiet. Now, come into the factory with us. This time, we will only hire 1,000 people, so we will select you and recruit as appropriate." As he said that, Leonard turned around and led the way. Behind him was a huge crowd of job-seeking wizards. After entering the factory, they only feel that their eyes are going to be dazzled. There is a clean and bright restaurant, and there are free staff meals for 2 vegetarians and 1 meat. The considerate and comfortable staff lounge not only has a variety of chess and card games, but also rich melon and fruit snacks. On the way, they also saw the future workplace with dozens of long assembly lines, which looked magnificent. Many Muggle wizards are reluctant to quit. Such a good environment. I can't believe it. Outside, the purebloods would like to give them dog food, let them live in a kennel, and exploit them as much as they can. The auditorium covers a total of 500 square meters and accommodated more than 3,000 wizards who applied for the job. Leona stood on the stage with a magic wand in his hand. The voice is loud. Cough, cough. The auditorium suddenly became quiet, and everyone was staring at Leonard on the stage. Leonard was not timid and said loudly, "Before you apply for the job, let me talk about the treatment of our Bade rocket crossbow super factory." Hearing that they were going to talk about treatment, everyone subconsciously raised their ears. Basic salary. Operator's basic salary is 30 gold plus uplift. Overtime pay. Overtime pay is calculated based on basic salary, and 36 hours per month are controlled. 5 insurances and 1 housing fund, commercial medical insurance, and the factory will guarantee it. Lunch in the cafeteria, snacks and fruit in the lounge are all unlimited supply. These are the benefits of our factory. If you feel that you can't accept it, you can leave now. After a while, not only did no one leave, but the people in the auditorium became even more eager. "Oh my God, this kind of welfare treatment is simply unimaginable in my dreams. Especially overtime pay. Before this, they didn't even have the concept. Shouldn't overtime work be free?" Seeing that no one left, Leonard was very satisfied and clapped his hands. The 10 excellent students below, who were now middle-level managers of the factory, each took out a large stack of job applications. However, Leonard did not directly ask the wizards below to fill in the registration form, but instead asked a digression with a serious face. "Before filling out the form again, there is a very important matter that needs to be investigated. It is related to your smooth work in our factory." When they heard that it was about work, everyone became nervous and looked at Leona with bated breath. I saw Leonard say slowly, "Now, wizards who are born in pure-blood families, that is, within 3 generations without Muggle blood, stand on the right. Muggle-born, or wizards of Muggle blood within 3 generations, stand on the left." As soon as the words fell, the entire auditorium exploded. What Leonard said is very complicated, but it is actually very simple to understand. Isn't this the distinguishing mark between pure-blood wizards and Muggle wizards? Bloodline discrimination. Although this term cannot be mentioned in the magic world, in fact, every wizard living in the magic world knows it well. "Haha, Mudblood, I know it." A very thin, hollow-cheeked, pure-blood wizard who looked very weak ran to the right very proudly. "Mudblood, I just said, how can we work with you filthy bastards? Now it seems that you should go back to the slums." Many down-and-out purebloods have pride and pride on their faces, because their noble bloodlines can even play a decisive role in job hunting. All of a sudden, a lot of downcast purebloods put on airs, taunting the Muggle wizards and swagger to the right. When bumping into a familiar pureblood, they will greet each other very familiarly. "Hey, Holland, you are auspicious." Saying this, the down-and-out pureblood patted his robe imposingly, pushed his left foot forward, then patted his shoulder, and bent slightly, performed a very complicated aristocratic etiquette. The wizard named Hollied was also very proud, and he repeated the noble etiquette. They are pure blood, even if they are living in abjection, wearing grandfather's clothes and stepping on father's leather shoes. But when it comes to their noble blood, I must be able to raise my chest, give a thumbs up, and tell you a story for 3 days and 3 nights. Several pure blood wizards gathered together, looked at the muggle wizard on the left with contempt, and talked freely. Let me just say, how could such a big company recruit Neba as employees, so they were let to run with them? That is, a group of mudbloods deserve such good treatment. That's right, only our purebloods are the masters of the magic world, and these mudbloods are all our servants. All kinds of discriminatory remarks kept flowing into the ears of muggle wizards. All the muggle wizards were extremely angry. They could only feel the anger burning in their chests, wishing they could rush forward and kill those self-righteous purebloods. However, they forcibly endured it because there were not many purebloods who came to apply for the job. In fact, in the wizarding world, the poorer and poorer the purebloods were, the poorer they were. Unless they were really hungry and couldn't afford to eat, they would never come out to work. Because they are pureblood masters, how can they do that kind of despicable work? Although the muggle wizards were very humiliated, they still endured it. The pureblood on the right seems to be only more than 400 people, which means that they still have a chance to get a job. Even though the number of places has been reduced by almost half, there are too few jobs in the magic world, and many people come here hungry. They need this job so much, so they can only endure it silently, not daring to cause trouble for fear of being kicked out. At this time, some pureblood wizards also noticed the number problem, and one of the middle-aged pureblood wizards showed displeasure. What's going on? Why are there 600 vacancies? Doesn't this make us work with these mudbloods? No, I'm going to find a factory manager. I absolutely can't go to work with these dirty things. Saying that, this middle-aged pureblood actually found Leonard in front of everyone. Master Factory Manager, hello. The middle-aged pureblood was very flattering. I am the heir of the Fu-Lei family. Leonard didn't know why and frowned. What's wrong? Seeing this, the middle-aged pureblood pointed at the group of muggle wizards in the audience and said loudly, Master, I noticed that even though all our purebloods have been recruited, there's still more than 600 vacancies. How can our group of noble purebloods work with this group of dirty mudbloods? So please don't admit them. As soon as the words fell, the muggle wizards in the audience were all furious, wishing to swallow this pure-blooded middle-aged man alive. I and others are so forbearing, this group of pureblood is still unwilling to let me go. Leonard showed a sarcasm and said lightly, Oh, is that so? What if I disagree? Disagree? The middle-aged pureblood froze, looked back at the purebloods who supported him, and suddenly had the courage in his heart to say, Director, please don't hire those dirty mudbloods. If you hire them, and we will. He hesitated a little, wondering if saying this would anger the big man in front of him. Protest! A voice suddenly shouted from the audience. A pure-blooded unemployed youth stood up and shouted, We will protest unless all the muggle wizards are driven away or their treatment is lowered. They don't deserve the same treatment as us. Ha ha ha! Leonard suddenly laughed angrily. Unexpectedly, after being imprisoned for so long, the purebloods in the magic world are still as stupid and arrogant as ever. Seeing Leonard smile, some people think that Leonard agrees with them and is very proud. Unexpectedly, Leonard smiled, and his face turned cold. Who said I want to hire you dirty pureblood moths? Everyone's smile faltered, and they looked at Leona in disbelief. Now, gentlemen standing on the right, you all go back and wait for the notice, and those on the left, stay and continue the interview. Everyone is blown up. Go back and wait for the notification. Fuck, you didn't even remember the name, and you asked them to go back and wait for the notification? Wait a shit. The pureblood wizards cursed Leona angrily and asked Leona to give them an explanation. Leonard wasn't used to their problems, so he clapped his hands, and a group of wizards in security uniforms rushed in outside the auditorium's gate. Picking up the stick, it was a severe beating to the group of pureblood. What? How dare you draw out your wand and fight back? The students of Azkaban, with murderous intent on their faces, cast a stun spell on them, knocked him out, and dragged him to the warehouse next door. I believe it won't be long before there will be another missing person in the magic world. After all the pure-blood wizards were driven away, Leonard said, in the future, we will only recruit muggle wizards at the Bade Rocket Crossbow Super Factory. Good. There was thunderous applause, and every muggle wizard slapped his palms red. Backstage, Lester looked at the group of muggle wizards with great satisfaction. In fact, he issued the order to only recruit muggle wizards. It has no other meaning, just to ensure that every worker is upright and young. You must know that a young wizard often represents a wizarding family. Even the first generation of muggle wizards will get married and have children. At that time, this group of wizards working for him will be his most loyal followers in the magic world. At that time, even if Dumbledore dared to lift the table, he would not be afraid. At worst, the entire wizarding world would go on strike. He didn't believe that Dumbledore could watch It has been a week since the Veldy Rocket Crossbow Super Factory started. In the past 7 days, the Rocket Crossbow specialty store has been overcrowded every day, and the supply of rocket crossbows has been in short supply. Not only that, Lester also shipped the rocket crossbow to the European continent through the Channel of Azkaban, so that not only can there be no tax declaration, but also no after-sales. In the magic world of Gaul, the magic world of Germany, the magic world of Adelai, and the magic world of Sioux, rocket crossbows are everywhere. The huge profits made many people envious. Among them, many well-known entrepreneurs in the magic world publicly condemned the Bader Group. Bade Group doesn't pay attention to martial arts, maliciously raises workers' wages, and disrupts the order of the labor market. Giving workers a holiday is corrupting workers. Workers in the magic world don't need holidays. Garbage Group, maliciously disrupting the magic world market, must be sued. In a Nocturne Alley union, Lester looked at the headlines of the Daily Prophet today and felt it was ridiculous. I just gave the workers the treatment they deserved, but this group of capitalists kept shouting. Lester didn't care. Anyway, he covered the sky with his hands and eyes, and these capitalists only dared to yell now. I believe they would be quiet after Songbiao came to the door. At this moment, there was a sudden knock on the door. Lester's spirit lifted. Is there finally a muggle wizard who wants to come to the Union to ask him to help him get justice? He hurriedly ran down to the second floor to open the door, and there were indeed 2 senior students wearing Hogwarts and Ravenclaw uniforms. Lester Bader, a young man with a delicate face and a haughty look, sized up Lester and said, I never thought that Lego, who was so windy and rainy at Hogwarts, would actually live in a place like this. Seeing that someone asked him for help, Lester lost interest and said lightly, Why? Do you have any opinions? The proud man smiled and said, Of course I have no objection, Lester. In fact, we have spent a lot of effort trying to find out your home address. So, can we come in and sit down? Although he didn't know what the 2 Ravenclaw students were looking for him for, Lester was fine now, and he didn't mind seeing them. After entering the Union, one of the proud men cut straight to the point. Lester, you may be very prestigious in Hogwarts, but you know that you will graduate eventually. Besides, you seem to be a muggle wizard. You must know that in the entire wizarding world, except for Veldy Rocket Crossbow Super Factory, basically no company will hire muggle wizards. Lester raised his eyebrows. So, the proud man smiled triumphantly. My father is a high-ranking official of the Light Wheel Company, and his father is the director of the Department of Magical Transportation and the Broomstick Management and Control Bureau. The reason we're looking for you is very simple. We appreciate you very much, so you could become our subordinate. Lester, good guy. It turned out that these 2 Ravenclaws thought they were muggle wizards, so they lived in distress, so they came to recruit themselves. It's ridiculous. A father is a high-ranking official of the Light Wheel Company, and a father is a middle-level official of magic. Such a small person dares to act presumptuously in front of him. Not to mention these 2 students, even their father, in front of me, they are all ants. Lester smiled and said lightly, May I ask, "What is your father's name?" A haughty man thought that Lester was moved, so he didn't suspect him, and said, "My father's name is Fu." Before the words were finished, there was a sudden noise outside the door, and then several men with gangster faces walked in. The leader was a very imposing old man, and behind them were two men in Chinese robes. Middle-aged man. "Master Lai, please forgive me for disturbing you." The old man ignored the two arrogant men, bowed to Lester, and then clapped his hands. Afterwards, a few flesh-and-blood black wizards brought up two men in Chinese robes. Lester was a little puzzled, looked at Old Foley, and asked in doubt, "Foley, what are you?" Old Foley respectfully took out an envelope from his bosom, handed it to Lester, and said, "Master Lai, this bastard actually wants to harm you. It's simply too crazy. So, I immediately called for someone to arrest him, and I also kidnapped his backer in the Ministry of Magic along the way." Two proud men, looking at the two men in Chinese robes who were kneeling on the ground with snot and tears, constantly admitting their mistakes and begging for mercy, the two Ravenclaw students were stunned. This is the chairman of Light Wheel Company. His father's boss has now become a prisoner, and now, this Ravenclaw is already confused. The other Ravenclaw was even more confused, and jumped up directly. "Director of the Broomstick Management and Control Bureau, why are you here?" "Damn, I was rash. I thought that Lester could only be powerful in school, but outside of school, Lester was even more prestigious." Old Foley also noticed the two young men, and made a throat-slitting gesture to Lester. The young man almost peed in fright, but fortunately Lester shook his head and said, "Both of them are students. The two students at school, who made trouble for themselves on the front foot, but were killed on the back foot, would definitely remind Dumbledore of themselves." Lester looked at the two students with a smile, and said with a smile, "By the way, what's your father's name?" Two proud men. Reluctantly, after betraying their father, the two Ravenclaws fled away. At this time, Lester had time to deal with the two people who were arrested. Devlin, the boss of the Light Wheel Group, looked at Lester, and he was full of regrets. "There are mudbloods here, and they're simply huge. I was eating hot pot, singing songs, and flirting with the female secretary in the office. Old Foley broke in with a group of thugs and tied himself here." Lester flipped through the envelope with great interest, and then his face darkened immediately. "You want to assassinate me?" Lester patted Devlin's face expressionlessly. Devlin almost peed in fright and begged for mercy. "Master Lai, I'm misunderstood. I was really wrong. I didn't know you have such a great power." "Don't you know that you have such a big power?" Lester smiled, slowly helped Devlin up, and said softly, it's okay. I'm a businessman." As soon as Devlin XIN put it down, Lester said coldly, "It's okay. Just pay more attention in the next life." Then a green light flashed. Devlin's eyes widened suddenly, and he fell straight to the floor. "Ah!" The director of the Broomstick Management and Control Bureau on the side, looking at the dead Devlin, was scared to pee, and a foul smell kept gushing out from his crotch. "Master Lai, I'm really wrong." The director really regretted it, and kowtowed crazily. "Master Lai, it was Devlin who gave me money and let me be his umbrella. I didn't know about his assassination of you." "Ah." Lester smelled the smell, frowned, and snorted coldly. "Quiet." The director immediately fell silent, but his trembling body still revealed his fear. Lester first used a cleansing spell to clean up the director, and said with a smile, "You are the director of the Broomstick Management and Control Bureau of the Ministry of Magic, so you should be responsible for the Quidditch pitch we plan to build in Nocturne Alley." "Right. Yes, Lord Lee." "Well, our stadium is a public facility, you see." The director immediately understood, and said, "Master Lai, our Ministry of Magic allocates funds, and our Ministry of Magic is responsible for all expenses incurred in the construction of the Nocturne Alley Quidditch Stadium. Build the Quidditch pitch and enrich the after-school life of the Wizards of Nocturne Alley. You are really a kind person. Entrepreneurs like you are really a model in our magic world, Lord Lai. When I go back, I will apply for a tax exemption policy for you, and I must support a good entrepreneur like you." Seeing that the director was so kind, Lester nodded in satisfaction and said, "Very well, then I will keep you soon." Afterwards, the director quickly left as if he had received an amnesty. While Lester's career was in full swing, the life of the savior Harry Potter was extremely difficult. On this day, the pot-bellied Mr. Dursley excitedly waved an order and walked into the house quickly. "Penny, look, what is this? An order from the Bader Group." There were screams of surprise in the room, and Harry's aunt, Petunia, ran out before she even had time to put on her shoes and hugged Dursley passionately. Mr. Dursley has a big belly, looking like he is the only one in the world. Even Dudley, who was extremely rebellious on weekdays, showed an expression of admiration and surrounded his father, scrambling to see the orders of the Bader Group. Bade Group? What is that? In the kitchen, Harry, miserable in his bulky chef's outfit, was cooking lunch for the Dursleys. While the Dursleys were reveling in the living room, Harry quickly picked up a piece of beef, put it in his mouth, and tasted it with enjoyment. In the past month, Harry has literally returned to hell from the clouds. The Dursleys treated him like a free servant, letting him do the laundry, cook, mop the floors, and clean the entire mansion. The most exaggerated thing is that they are obviously a family, and they eat different things. Every day, the Dursleys had a lot of fish and meat, but he could only eat some vegetables and porridge, barely enough to fill his stomach. At this moment, a tyrannical voice sounded in his ear. "Dad, Potter, he actually stole a piece of beef." Dudley looked at Harry, who was chewing, and jumped up angrily. That was his food. Why should Harry eat it? "It's okay, my dear little Dudley." Mr. Dursley didn't care, stroking Dudley's hair, and said, "With the order from the Bader Group, we will be able to truly live a high society life soon." Mrs. Dursley was very angry. She went over and pulled Harry's ear fiercely and scolded, "You thief! Our family kindly took you in, yet you steal food." Harry grinned in pain and glared at his aunt viciously. Mrs. Dursley got even angrier, grabbed Harry by the ear, and was about to shove him into the downstairs cupboard. "Petunia, don't worry about this little bastard." Mr. Dursley was very happy now and said, "To celebrate, we will go to a 5-star hotel in central London. Now, hurry up and change clothes." When she heard that she was going to a 5-star hotel, Petunia ignored Harry, let go of Harry's ear, and said in surprise, "Really? Of course, this is an order from the Bader Group. From now on, we will be the real rich." Dudley was also very happy, running around, shouting, "We are really rich." Looking at the cheerful Dursleys, Harry felt disgusted for no reason and whispered, "What kind of Bader Group? I've never heard of it." But he never thought that these words were heard by Dursley, and Mr. Dursley, who was still smiling before, immediately became gloomy. "Little bastard, what are you talking about? The Bader Group is the only designated cooperative group of the government. A hair on your leg can crush you to death. You're living in our Dursley's family now, so you have to be careful with what you say, and don't let me hear you say bad things about the Bader Group again." Harry was terrified. The current Mr. Dursley, if he said another bad word about the Bader Group, he would definitely kick him out. "Boy, you remember, 1 month later, the people from the Bader Group will come back to our house as guests. When that time comes, you will stay in that room on the 3rd floor and don't come out. Do you understand? The room on the 3rd floor?" "Yes," Mr. Dursley said impatiently. "From now on, you don't need to live in the storage room under the stairs. You will go to the room on the 3rd floor to clean it later, and then live in it honestly, understand?" Harry was overjoyed, a real room like a dream. Of course, it wasn't that Dursley was pitying Harry. He was just doing it so that Harry would be more honest on the day of his visit a month later. Dursley was well aware of his abuse of Harry. If he was found out by the Bader Group, he would definitely lose the possibility of cooperation. Hogwarts, the headmaster's office on the 8th floor. "Lester Bader, I didn't expect that. I really underestimated you." Dumbledore was flipping through the recent Daily Prophet. The headline above is not how good the rocket crossbow is, or how generous the treatment of the Bade rocket crossbow superfactory is. Dumbledore regretted a bit after reading the newspaper article praising the Bader superfactory. Before, no matter how powerful Lester was, he was only a student, so Dumbledore could forcefully award the Academy Cup to Gryffindor. But now, Lester's rocket crossbow exploded the entire wizarding world, and the factory attracted countless Muggle wizards. Forget it, I'm busy with the Ministry of Magic Minister election this semester, and I'll make it up to you after school starts. Dumbledore regretted it very much. If he had known that Lester was so promising, he would have sold Lester's face. When the time comes, let Gryffindor and Slytherin win the championship together. How great! Unfortunately, it was too late to say anything now, and there were only two choices before Dumbledore. One is to start to be an enemy of Lester, and the other is to win over Lester and make him a help against Voldemort in the future. Dumbledore didn't even think about it. He chose the second one. In his heart, the magic world still relies on fists to speak. Lester is now powerful. No matter how many factories, no matter how rich he is not as threatening as Voldemort. Dumbledore still vividly remembers the pressure Voldemort brought to the wizarding world. Therefore, in order to defeat Voldemort, Dumbledore needs to cooperate with all the forces that can cooperate, and Lester is a good choice. Although he left angrily last semester without giving himself face. So what? Isn't it normal for a capable person to have a little temper? In order to defeat Voldemort, he even gave up his own life. Isn't it just to save face? Dumbledore has plenty. Thinking of this, the more Dumbledore looked at Lester, the more pleasing he was, and he obviously regarded Lester as one of his own. Of course, fortunately, Dumbledore didn't know that all the things that slandered him were instigated by Lester. Otherwise, even if he allowed Voldemort to return, he would have to tear Lester into pieces first. After making up his mind about Lester's future, Dumbledore took out an envelope. The person who wrote the letter was Barty Crouch, the candidate for Minister of Magic. The content of the letter is very simple. Now that the Minister's general election has entered a heated stage, Crouch hopes that Dumbledore can use his own political resources to support him. In return, Crouch will help him drive all Fudge's forces out of the Ministry of Magic. It has been a month since Lester returned to the magic world. During this month, the wizards in the magic world have accepted the behemoth of the Beta Group. Now, the broomstick market in the entire magic world has been monopolized by rocket crossbows. As for the other four companies, they can only survive and rely on foreign markets for development. The Veldy Rocket Crossbow Super Factory also completed the second expansion of worker recruitment, and once again recruited 500 Muggle wizards who were basically clean. The pureblood families in Nocturne Alley also announced their relocation one after another. Headed by the Foley family, these dark wizard families all moved to Spider's End Alley and established their own forces there. At this point, Nocturne Alley officially has a new owner, and that is the president of the Wizard Workers Union, Lester Bader. In the office on the third floor of the Nocturne Alley Trade Union, Lester was lying on the boss's chair, looking down at the entire Nocturne Alley through the large French windows. At this time, the dirty and stinky Nocturne Alley where black wizards gathered had already undergone a major transformation thanks to Lester's efforts. In the original slums, all the land was taken over by the real estate subsidiary company of the Beta Group, and all of them were demolished and transformed into small high-rise buildings. In the case of bungalows, the area of the station is often large and the number of people accommodated is relatively small, but the situation is different for high-rise buildings. On the same land, as long as you build higher, you can live as many people as you want. The Dark Wizard Trading Black Market in Nocturne Alley was also canceled by Lester and replaced by the Wizard Market. The commodity remains the same, but there is an extra law enforcement team composed of prisoners responsible for law enforcement to ensure that there is no forced buying and selling in the market. Unlike before, the current Nocturne Alley Wizards Market has a daily flow of people no less than that of Diagon Alley. The reason is very simple. Most of the workers in the Bader Super Factory live in Nocturne Alley, and there are many dormitories for employees in the factory, which are built in Nocturne Alley. In this way, there will be a strong consumption power. The workers get wages from part-time jobs, and there is a high probability that they will go to the nearest market for consumption. In order to earn more money, merchants will definitely stay in the Wizard Market in Nocturne Alley. Although there are no shops here, they can only set up street stalls and pay carpet fees. However, relying on the huge consumption power of the workers. The merchants have made a lot of money one after another, rushing to live in Nocturne Alley to sell their goods. Over time, the wizarding market in Nocturne Alley has become more and more prosperous, and the living standards of Nocturne Alley residents have also continued to improve. After the basic material life is guaranteed, people will pursue spiritual enjoyment. Bad Quidditch Stadium, where there are free Quidditch matches every day for all to watch. Brian, the top star, is also a resident guest of the stadium. Every day, wizards from all over the magic world come here to pay their respects to their idols and watch a hearty game along the way. Now, according to polls, Nocturne Alley is the third happiest place in the wizarding world. In front of him were Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley. Lester looked at the street with people coming and going and sighed. When will I find a reliable doctor? Without a hospital, how will my Nocturne Alley compete with Diagon Alley in the future? Why do some places pay a lot of money, while others don't care about it? Because the functions of cities are different. In a city where every inch of land is expensive, there are supermarkets, shopping malls, entertainment facilities, and hospitals. Now, in Knockover Alley, the supermarkets, shopping plazas, and entertainment facilities are all built by ourselves, and the only thing that needs to be done is the livelihood support facilities. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, there was an unhurried knock on the door. Come in, Lester said without raising his head. Afterwards, Hafez brought Fudge and quickly came to Lester. Director Fudge, this is my boss, who is also the chairman of the Bader Group, Lester Bader. Hafiz introduced Lester very respectfully. Fudge's face changed, and he immediately smiled. Master Lai, hello, I'm Cornelius Fudge, the director of the Department of Magical Disasters, and I'm very glad to be able to work for you. Before, when Hafiz told Fudge that he still had a big brother, Fudge thought he was joking, but he never imagined that there really was such a big brother, and he seemed to be very young. Lester stood up and stretched out his right hand with a smile. Director Fudge, seeing is believing, ha-ha. Fudge quickly took Lester's hand and respectfully said, Master Lai, you are a big shot. It is my honor to take the time to see me. It's no wonder that Fudge is so lacking in dignity. The main reason is that the only one who can save him now is Lester. Before, in the ministerial battle between him and Crouch, he had always had the upper hand and beat Crouch. However, within this month, the situation changed drastically. The legendary wizard Dumbledore actually mobilized his own political resources and began to lean towards Crouch. In just 1 month, many of Fudge's political allies defected. Compared with Dumbledore, Fudge, the director of the Department of Magical Disasters, is simply not competitive at all. Helpless, Fudge could only find Hafiz, and under Hafiz's recommendation, he found Lester and sought powerful political assistance from Lester. Master Lai, please help me, Fudge said sincerely. I am willing to be your most loyal subordinate. The most loyal subordinate. Lester looked at Fudge playfully. In the original book, Dumbledore also supported him to become a minister. As a result, the white-eyed wolf turned around and stabbed Dumbledore. Lester suppressed his smile and said expressionlessly, Really? You should know the price of lying to me. Master, Fudge said very kindly and bowed to him. Lester didn't stop him either, but after Fudge finished his worship, he said calmly, I can support you to become the Minister of Magic, but I need an unbreakable oath. A trace of hesitation appeared on Fudge's face. Then he gritted his teeth and said, Master, I am willing. Factional competition has always been a life-and-death struggle. Unlike Crouch, I belong to the pure-blooded 28 Saints. If someone fails, you can keep your previous status, but if you fail yourself, you will definitely be liquidated. Those who are light are dismissed from their posts, and the painstaking efforts of the previous 10 years have been wasted. If it is more serious, he will be directly assassinated to eradicate his old opponent. Good. Lester was very satisfied, and under the witness of Hafiz, he signed an unbreakable oath with Fudge. Fudge will treat Lester as his master and must not betray him. Otherwise, he will die suddenly. As for Lester, he needs to use all his resources to help Fudge become the Minister of Magic. Otherwise, there will be no price. In the past few days, Director Crouch can be described as having a bright future. The detached headmaster Dumbledore decided to end up supporting himself a few days ago. Now, the Wisengamot has become Crouch's voice, and almost all Wisengamot committee members support Crouch. They're also the heads of various departments in the Ministry of Magic. Most of them were attached to Fudge before. After Dumbledore entered the arena, they returned to a wait-and-see state. In the office of the Ministry of Magic's legal department, Mr. Crouch was radiant, holding Dumbledore's letter of support, full of confidence. Fudge, not even the 28 Holy Family. What qualifications does he have to compete with me? Winky. Mr. Crouch snapped his fingers and called a house elf. Go and tell Albus the Crouch family will always remember your help. Go. After Winky left, Mr. Crouch laid down on the chair in the office again, already imagining in his mind what it would be like when he was a minister. At the same time, Mr. Crouch's competitor, Fudge, also quietly came to Nocturne Alley. Today is the final of the Nocturne Alley Quidditch Cup. The director of the Department of Magical Disasters of the Ministry of Magic, Mr. Cornelius Fudge, came uninvited and became an audience. This time, he didn't put on any airs of a high-ranking official of the Ministry of Magic. He was just alone, wearing a patched suit, with gentlemanly manners, and smiling. If you didn't observe carefully, you wouldn't be able to tell that he was a high-ranking official of the Ministry of Magic. Fudge stood among the fanatical spectators, thinking to himself, Grandpa Lai asked me to watch the game, and then he arranges it freely. What does that mean? Soon, Fudge understood. Today is Saturday, and the Bade Rocket Crossbow Super Factory is on holiday. All the workers, with their families, came to watch the free ball game. The huge stadium was actually packed to the brim. The local residents of Nocturne Alley and the Quidditch fans from outside gathered together. And Fudge is like a boat in the sea, unnoticed at all. The game progressed to a normal level, and there was an intermission as usual. At this time, a large screen flew into the sky under the influence of magic. Then, the screen flashed, and a lucky little wizard appeared on the screen with a dazed expression. Next to him were his parents in the overalls of the Bade factory, all smiling and greeting the screen. That's right, this is Lester's method of copying the Muggle world. Whenever he is in the restroom at halftime, he will interact with the audience in the audience. At this moment, wearing a patched suit and a black gentleman's hat, Fudge, who looked ordinary, appeared on the screen. Fudge! The moment Fudge appeared on the screen, many people were stunned, only feeling that this person looked familiar. As a politician, Fudge naturally knew what to do now. He did not stand alone. Like the previous family of three, he smiled and greeted the camera like an ordinary uncle next door. Fudge was instantly recognized. My God, is this Mr. Fudge from the Ministry of Magic? How did he appear here? This kind of big man shouldn't look down on this kind of a regular game. Why did he come back? Mr. Fudge is so plainly dressed, he's no different from those 250 guys from the Ministry of Magic. It's just a picture, and everyone in the Quidditch pitch knows that Mr. Fudge from the Ministry of Magic actually came to watch the game, and he was wearing casual clothes with patches on it, sitting with ordinary wizards like them, watching together match. The wizards around Fudge surrounded Fudge, greeted him one after another, and welcomed his arrival. And Fudge is also very close to the people. He never refuses anyone who comes. Even if it is insulting him, he responds with a smile and promises that he will definitely investigate the corruption of the Ministry of Magic's legal department and will never let any criminal go. In the end, Fudge picked up a 5- or 6-year-old little wizard and took a photo with him with a smile. The next day, the headline of the Daily Prophet immediately changed from Headmaster Dumbledore says Barty Crouch is a trustworthy man to Mr. Fudge among the people. Fudge hugged the child and smiled as he said to the photo, and even stood on half of the page. Anyone who saw him would think he was a kind middle-aged man. That didn't end there, and the next day, Fudge's story of helping a difficult wizarding family in Nocturne Alley once again hit the headlines of the Daily Prophet. In the photo, Fudge is pulling a dirty little wizard and said in a warm voice, "Don't worry, kid. Uncle Fudge will definitely let you go to school. Let's pull the hook." The child showed a pure smile, stretched out his little hand, and held Fudge together. In the end, Fuji even went to visit the Bade Super Factory to seriously investigate the living conditions and working conditions of the workers. Whenever encountering unfair and unreasonable phenomena, Fuji will always spare no effort to help. In just 1 week, Fudge's popularity among the people has skyrocketed. Every ordinary wizard would like a good wizard like Fudge to become the Minister of Magic. A well-known powerhouse in the magic world, Hafez even spoke directly on the Daily Prophet. We must all learn from his spirit of utter lack of selfishness. Starting from this point, one can become a person who is of great benefit to the people. A person's ability may be great or small, but as long as he has this spirit, he is a noble person, a pure person, a moral person, a person who has escaped vulgar interests, and a person who is beneficial to the people. We should learn from Mr. Fudge and become a person who is beneficial to the wizarding world. Brian, a well-known star in the magic world, even said in an interview after the game, "You always say that I save Hogwarts and am a hero, but what I want to say is that I only saved a school from being destroyed by the Sioux." But Mr. Fudge, he is saving the entire wizarding world, saving all the lost wizards in the wizarding world. He is the real hero. Nocturne Alley has become the birthplace of Fudge. As soon as you walk into Nocturne Alley, you can see slogans supporting Fudge. Mr. Fudge came from the people to the people, and he really understood what we lack. Only Mr. Fudge can lead us to live a good life, and some idiots can only do bad things. A true hero never needs to care about the eyes of others. Below is a photo of Fudge wearing a worn-out suit and visiting the Bader factory. Every worker expressed a warm welcome to Fudge's arrival. In the factory, almost all the workers became Fudge's supporters, because Fudge really paid attention to the lives of their Muggle wizards. Moreover, the director of the factory also clearly supported Fuji. Everyone was very grateful to Bader Factory for finding such a good job. In addition, Fuji did a good job, so the workers and their families became the Hogwarts, the headmaster's room on the 8th floor. Mr. Crouch found Dumbledore with a haggard face and said, "Principal, save me. Fuji is too insidious." As he said that, he spread out the newspaper in his hand, and the headline read, "Fuji Wisdom Fights the Black Wizard. Eliminate 13 innocent students." Fuji is really shameless. In order to be a minister, he dared to play any fake job. He even made a black wizard out of wits. He is such a waste that he can't even beat Little Red Riding Hood. He also beat 13 black wizards. Mr. Crouch was very dissatisfied. He had a chance to win, but Fudge suddenly played the people's line for him, and he was very caught off guard. Dumbledore was the same old god as always, and said lightly, "Don't worry, Batty. I've already made a move, and you can see the results tomorrow." Dumbledore is very confident. Isn't it because he has the support of the people? If Fudge can do this, so can Dumbledore. The people in Nocturne Alley support Fudge. So what? The real wizarding village, Hogsmeade, is Dumbledore's private land. All kinds of high-end shops can be seen everywhere in Hogsmeade. He doesn't believe it. They can't beat a mere Fudge. Hogsmeade, Saturday. A support advertisement for Barty Crouch quietly appeared at the entrance. All kinds of good deeds about Barty Crouch have become slogans. The holidays are over, and the second academic year has begun. During this holiday, Fudge became the minister of the Ministry of Magic, and Lester also successfully became a second-year student at Hogwarts. As soon as he arrived at the school, Lester laughed, and everyone in Slytherin was staring at Dumbledore very unhappily. Obviously, these little snakes still couldn't mind what happened last semester. After witnessing the end of the freshman sorting, Lester returned to the Slytherin lounge, took a rest, and then began his study life. The new school year is no different from the first grade. Every day we go to class, finish class, and play around. Until it's that little wizard who petrified my Mrs. Norris. Filch shouted angrily in the hall. Malfoy stood up at this moment, pointed at Potter passing by, and said, "It's Potter." Harry was also surprised, and then got very angry, saying angrily, "It's not me, you bloody horse manure." After that, the two of them wrestled. Lester didn't stop him, but sneaked into the Gryffindor lounge silently at night, and then he managed to get a black notebook. "Goodbye, Tom." A smear of fierce flame appeared on Lester's hand, and then a painful howl resounded throughout the school. Voldemort dead? And Dumbledore, also sensing Voldemort's death, looked up at Lester downstairs, with killing intent in his eyes. Through the portrait, he already knew what happened just now. Lester, a little wizard, could actually send out such a terrible fire, just like the Sangbiao who burned the Ministry of Magic. "Son, you're going the wrong way," Dumbledore said with disappointment in his eyes. And Lester also saw Dumbledore. He was surprised at first, and then smiled indifferently. In fact, he knew before that he and Dumbledore could no longer reconcile. Lester gave Dumbledore a middle finger, and then walked towards the Forbidden Forest first. Dumbledore also had a serious face, and disappeared into the office in an instant. A few hours later, a shocking fire ignited in the Forbidden Forest, and then Dumbledore became obsessed with learning black magic, which spread throughout the wizarding world. The next day, Sangbiao took everyone from Azkaban and settled in Hogwarts forcefully. Hogwarts is officially under the control of Lester. In the third school year, nothing happened because Sirius didn't escape, he couldn't escape, and Pettigrew Peter was also caught by Lester, and Avada ate the big melon directly. In the fourth school year, in the Goblet of Fire, Lester was selected and won with 1 against 100. In the fifth school year, Lester began to fight against Voldemort, destroyed all of Voldemort's Horcruxes, and won the victory. In the sixth school year, Lester's sixth grade has already controlled the entire magic world. Afterwards, Lester was not limited to playing around in the magic world, and gradually began to go out to the world. The European magic world was captured by Lester's army within 3 months. The American magic world also surrendered within a month. The Chinese magic world also became an ally with Lester, occupied the entire East, and shared the world with Lester. Sitting on the headmaster's bench at Hogwarts, Lester's eyes were full of memories. From being wrongly imprisoned to becoming famous now, it seems to be just a blink of an eye. System, thank you for your company.
Hello, everyone. As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500+ novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.